Well, from the at least until next Friday, Graham Stewart. He's been MP for Beverley and Holderness, Yorkshire since 2000.
What the fuck is this? No, I'm not even going to ask who it is. I'm going to ask what it is.
I've never seen this man before in my life.
It looks like a spitting image doll.
It really
of
does.
An actual person. It looks like a spitting image version of David Davis.
It really does. It looks like a David Davis that's turned into like a feral ghoul. And actually, this is, again, it's another gaming reference you're not going to get from Fallout.
Yeah.
Exposed like a radiation exposed David Davis.
Yeah, true. Yeah, it looks like David Davis and Vladimir Putin together.
Yeah, yeah.
But I don't know who the fuck he is, and I follow British politics, and I don't know who this man is.
Absolute nobody.
And he's got weird earlobes. Ugh.
2005 and has witnessed much of the recent chaos from the inside as climate minister. From Labour, Jess Phillips, the Birmingham MP, is Shadow Minister for Domestic Violence and Safeguarding. Back in 2020, she resigned early in her campaign to become Labour leader and has written books about her life, politics and power. You may know her as the sister of Boris, remember him? But the columnist and broadcaster Rachel Johnson once agreed...
Well, I'm sure she'll be absolutely fair in judging the potential candidates, including, let me just check, oh yeah, her fucking brother.
Actually, to be fair, I think when she's when she's been talking about stuff, she's actually been a lot fairer than I expected. Like LBC, the issue isn't. I don't think the issue is that she's going to be somehow compromised in her judgment. I just think she's an idiot. Like, I don't know if you ever listened to her speak. She's just a moron. It's like she's just one of those people who've kind of coasted through life, never having to worry about anything because they've just grown up insanely rich and incredibly privileged, and just doesn't know how the world works.
Yeah, the Johnson family in totality. They've never had to do
100%.
anything, and they've just stumbled into prominence. It's tragic. If they'd been born in the same place I was, they'd be homeless or in jail or whatever.
Yeah.
Lib Dem Labour coalition of sorts to replace the current government. Camilla Cavendish has made various contributions to public life. She headed up David Cameron's policy unit, number 10, when he resigned in 2016. She's now a House of Lords.
She's also a fucking giraffe by the looks of it.
Crossbench peer and a columnist at the Financial Times.
If you want someone to blame for austerity,
and once an advisor,
like, she's another person. Like, she was head of policy for David Cameron. She's also to blame for austerity. She's also an absolute fucking monster.
Yeah.
UK Treasury, Tony Danker, is now Director General of the CBI. That means he leads an organisation representing nearly 200,000 businesses across the UK.
So it's just right wing, right wing, right wing, right wing, right wing.
Yep.
Brilliant.
Not even trying to hide it now.
No.
Good evening. Welcome to our panel, to our studio audience here in Cheltenham, chosen as always to present how people have voted in the last election in England, as well as local elections, and we take into account sustained changes in polling as well. Very good to see you. And of course,
which I always fucking hate, because I want a taste of the local environment. I don't want a national split down the like. If you're in a Tory area, there should be a Tory audience or whatever, because that's the people who live there.
Yeah.
Rather than like strictly dividing it down or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I always thought really silly policy. But it's the BBC has to be scrupulously fair and all. Like, shut the fuck up, man.
Yeah.
Welcome to you. You can join the conversation the usual way on social media at BBC Question Time. Now, we choose our questions depending on what question you ask. I have to say, the overall sense of your questions tonight is what on earth has just happened and what is going to happen now. So let's just deal with that for a moment, because it's been quite a day. Graham, now you're here from the government. What was it like?
You can tell that he desperately wanted to be there because he had to fight off all of the other mainstream people who actually we've heard of, clearly, who definitely didn't want to do as well, right? And he's drawn the lucky straw to have to go there and polish. It's not even a turd anymore. It's putrefied beyond turd level.
Well, he might be somebody. He might be somebody who submitted a letter of no confidence. I mean, obviously, as a climate minister, I think it's unlikely, but if they're getting somebody on who's anti-Liz Truss, that would create an interesting dynamic.
That would be good, but it seems unlikely.
Mike, in the last day or two, and when did you know the game was up?
Well, it hasn't been easy, obviously, for anybody, and I'd like to apologise to the audience and the people of the country for the instability that there has been in our political life at a time when we need that stability more than ever. So and on the inside track, it hasn't been comfortable.
It's interesting that whilst apologising, he's using the passive voice of the instability that's happened. It's just like it's a natural event. No, the fuckery you pricks have caused for a decade now.
Yeah, exactly.
The fuck?
We're obviously facing many very serious challenges. The Prime Minister resigned today and accepted responsibility.
When did you know that was going to happen? Or that it was very likely to happen?
When I heard that she was going to make a statement in Downing Street, I assumed, and then I was in the House of Commons. I went into the House of Commons tea room where I sat with my colleagues. We went silent, watched the television and watched the announcement together.
So you had no idea before then?
I had no idea before then, and I'm a government minister and member of the cabinet, but that's the nature of these.
And how are you feeling now?
I feel disappointed, I feel sad, I backed Liz Truss. Shocked, yeah. I guess shell-shocked to an extent. I backed Liz Truss. I worked with her at the Department for International Trade, where I thought she was a very strong performer.
Did an excellent job selling weapons to Saudi Arabia.
She's a good person.
Yeah. Yeah, that high-pitched thing's on the BBC end. I don't know what... Hopefully that goes away.
Yeah, yeah. Like, literally, it was Liz Truss's decision as International Trade Secretary to resume sales of weapons to Saudi Arabia. So the Houthis being killed by the Saudi Arabian military are literally being sold... Like, they would not have been sold those weapons were it not for Liz Truss.
Yeah. Thanks, Liz.
Well done. Cheers.
Well, I'm very right-wing, and I thought it was awesome.
Are you reassured? I'm reassured.
Yeah. That was 45 days ago.
Over many years to serving the people of this country. I'm extremely disappointed that her administration was not a success. And I think the responsibility on us all now, given the challenges we're facing, is to go forward, find a leader who can command a majority in the House of Commons, deliver the elected government that the people put in place in 2019.
Well, we'll get into that in a moment, but just let's take stock, because it has been a heck of a day.
It has been a heck of a day, been a heck of a week in what has been one heck of a couple of months, which it is just... Listening to Graham, it more in sorrow than in anger, and I understand why he has to present it like that. But the sort of I am sorry, which I'm sure he means from the bottom of his heart.
I've just realised as
well. It just simply doesn't.
He looks like James Acaster's granddad.
He does look like James Acaster's granddad. That's an excellent spot.
Yeah.
There is an absolute revolving door of chaos. We have had, I mean, in this year, we will have had 3 prime ministers in 12 years of Tory rule, where in my constituency and across the country, things are on their knees, no matter which service it is, literally from the menial of getting your passport right up to trying to get into an ambulance. I'm sorry, and we've got to get it. It's just unbelievable. They have no mandate. The country is not the Tory party's fiefdom for them to just do whatever they want and say, oh, sorry, it didn't work out. Sorry, it didn't work out. People's mortgages have gone up. People's lives have been dramatically affected. Like, they're not fit to govern. They don't have a mandate. Whoever wins next Monday should go immediately to the country, because the country is desperate for change.
Oh, I wonder, Jess, if they were desperate for change in 2019. I wonder if they were desperate for change in 2017. I wonder what you did about that, Jess. I wonder what your opinion of those elections was, and whether or not you actually cared about ending the however long Tory rule was at each of that points, right? It's weird, isn't it? It's really weird how they're still in power, Jess.
Very odd. Also, I'd just like to apologise for that Brummie accent. That was unacceptable. 2 Brummie accents on one show is too much.
Now look, I want to hear what you think as well, so put your hands up if you've got a comment. But Rachel, it's rather fortuitous that you're on the panel this evening, because in the last couple of hours, there's talk now that perhaps your brother may stand again. What can you tell us about that?
Well, I mean, can I start by agreeing with Jess that, I mean, why don't they just keep the lectern in Downing Street and to save the poor lectern, the person who's in charge of the lectern, having to lug it in and out of the revolving door is what I think. I agree that it does feel as if the Tory party, after 12 years, 3 prime ministers in a year, however many chancellors, however many home secretaries, is a bit like our topsoil. I think it needs a period.
It's a bit like our
topsoil, which is very depleted. It's exhausted. It's been overused. It's run out of all the vital ingredients it needs actually to sustain this country
I don't think
going
so, though,
forward. And I think it needs a period in opposition.
If they were topsoil, they would have had any substance amongst them to begin with. When actually, what it really is they're weeds. But they've started off kind of as a little growth that you get that frustrates you, and over time they've consumed everything until all the nutrients have gone, and now they've died. That's more. I think that's more what it is, like a parasitic tumor that's kind of where now the corpse. Yeah, they've now the body that they were inhabiting, parasitically sucking out all the life away from, has ceased to be, and they have nothing left to suck out.
True.
It needs to go off and rewild itself gently. And as for my brother coming back, I can't bring you any news on that.
You must come on, Rachel.
No,
you must have been texting at least.
Well, I have no comment on that, but.
So do you know?
I've got plenty of comments.
Rachel, wait a minute. Let's clarify. Do you know, Rachel? Let's clarify. Do you actually know?
I know nothing, and on it about anything, as you'll discover in the course of the show. But it was when that chap saw my brother's face in his chicken korma, I'd realised that we'd reached the Turin shroud level of buyer's remorse, and that we would be paying for the second coming soon. And lo, this morning, just as I after booked for question
Jesus, got the amount of kids these guys more than second coming. Fucking hell.
time, Liz Truss resigns, and of course
That's
you see it all over
joke.
Twitter.
You're very welcome.
You know, we're not even talking about the Prime Minister who's on the way out. We're talking about the 55th Prime Minister returning to replace the 56th. And you think, help, where are we going with this? And I forgive, you know, I feel I should say sorry too, but I've had nothing to do with this. This is going to be done. Luckily, just one thing, I'm not. You said I wanted a Lib Lab Green coalition. I've never actually said that, but when the words came out to our researcher, I thought I was answering a WhatsApp. But now you've said it, I think it's a very good idea.
You think that's a good idea?
I think it's a good idea.
So we got it right. Yes, the man here. Yes, you.
I find it quite interesting to understand what it is that those close to Liz Truss felt made her fit for Prime Minister, because as a member of the public, a number of weeks ago, it's no surprise to me that she lasted 6 weeks. I remember listening to an interview with Liz Truss on the radio before the invasion of Ukraine, and she was asked the question a number of times about incursions and what it meant. She couldn't answer the definition of what an incursion on Ukraine would mean. And I thought, you're the Foreign Secretary negotiating on our behalf on the world stage, and you can't answer this very simple question to one of Rachel's co-presenters on the radio. It wasn't just someone on the station. And then people were saying, and then when Boris, because it became inevitable, Liz Truss is one of the favourites. And I'm sat there with my head in my hands thinking, is this really the person we believe to be suitable for Prime Minister? It's the highest office in our country. We believe she's suitable. And I actually feel really sorry for her, because she should never have been put close to that office, ever. She's capable. I'm not saying she's not a good person. She was never capable of being Prime Minister. And what happened today is of absolutely zero surprise to me.
Okay. Man behind you there.
I've been following politics for near on 30 years, and I'm just absolutely gobsmacked.
Well, when you were in your 40s.
A couple of years ago, we were slating Donald Trump, his type of politics, and thinking it would never happen here. the shenanigans of the last week have been incredible. And in fact, Andy Street, the mayor of Birmingham, said today, well, we've got one more chance. One more chance. I mean, the game is up. I actually think the Tory party are delirious. They're not making mistakes. They're just delirious. And I think you'll find that the emotion here it speaks volumes.
Okay, well, we'll find out. Let's hear one more point before I go to the first question. The man at the back there, yes. With the dark suit, yes.
Me.
Yes, you on the right there.
Yeah.
Yes, you, sir. That's it, yeah. You got the microphone hanging over your head.
I just want to say, when politicians, when things suits them, they talk the way they want to go. Guess Philip is saying we should go to the country, we should have an election. When in 2019, we were having all this difficulty with Brexit, and Boris wanted to have an election. People were opposing him. We don't vote for individuals here in this country. We've got a parliamentary system. We vote for a political. They've got a mandate till 2024. So if the Tories are destroying themselves...
No. You don't vote for a political party. That's wrong. You vote for a member of parliament.
Yep.
So you're just wrong there, mate. Brilliant.
Yeah, and also
let them destroy themselves.
Their mandate for 2019 is based off the manifesto from 2019, which they've clearly decided they've fucking incinerated and put in the bin.
Yeah, they just voted to allow fracking in parliament. So, like, yeah, fuck them. Their mandate's got.
And did a 3-line whip on it.
Yep.
They cared so much about something that wasn't even in the manifesto, that was explicitly banned in them, like not being committed to in the manifesto, so they wouldn't do it. And then they turned around so wholesale that they decided that anybody who didn't vote for getting rid of that manifesto promise should literally have the whip taken away and be suspended from the party. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's utterly ridiculous. It's farcical. That's what it really is.
When 2024 comes, their mandate will be over, and we will have an election. So we shouldn't say things when it suits us and say another one when it doesn't suit us.
Okay, well, look, that leads us on to our first question tonight, which is from Claire Howe. Let's hear from you.
The Tories seem unable to form a functioning government. Is it time that the country were given a general election?
And what do you think?
I would like a general election.
Good that they've got a tablecloth behind her. That's good.
It seems a long time since I feel that the government has been working for this country. I feel that the mandate we had in 2019 is not relevant today. So much has happened, and I think it's time for us to have a say.
Tony.
Well, I understand the sentiment, but I would have one word of caution, right? We're in the middle of a debt crisis, cost of living crisis, growth crisis, and what we've had is instability. And instability has had a real impact. It's wrecked people's mortgages. It's wrecked people's businesses. And my fear now, particularly when markets are sensitive, particularly when the Chancellor just set out a plan to get...
I'm absolutely fucking sick. Every single framing of this issue as just being about rich people's mortgages and businesses. Can we not talk about the fact that all of those additional mortgage costs in the private rented sector are all going to get pushed onto renters now? The people who are literally the most destitute people in this fucking country, they're going to have to pay an extra £200 a month in rent. They're literally having to doing blind bids for rentals in some cities in the country, right? They're literally having to have a fucking auction to be able to have a place to live. It's unconscionable. I obviously must sound angry. I am even more angry than I sound about what is happening to renters, and they never even get the time of day from the media nor anybody in the political classes. And then on top of that,
they're all fucking landlords.
They're all landlords, yeah. And on top of that, every single renter that I know, they all have seen what's happening to the mortgage crisis that's going on at the moment, and they have so much sympathy and empathy for what these people must be going through, seeing their mortgage costs skyrocket out of nowhere, possibly out of affordability range, so they might default and lose their homes. And I see so much empathy coming from renters in this situation. They understand the hardship. And then all of the boomers with the mortgages, they had nothing, not a single shred of neither sympathy nor remorse. But what essentially the high likelihood is they inflicted this upon renters. The vast majority of renters vote Labour. The vast majority of homeowners vote Tory. They inflicted this government upon renters, and renters having to pick up like the shitty end of the stick, as they have been doing so ever since the over-financialisation of housing in the 80s. And these people are now they're at the point where they go, oh no, my mortgage is unpayable now. I'm like, tough shit. You got what you wanted. You voted for this shit. You voted for this fucking shit show. Own it. I'm beyond having sympathies for these people at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. But yeah, we've got a government that essentially is run for and by business now. That's it.
Yeah. Not even just business, explicitly the financial sector, right? Just financiers and speculators, right? People who actually, like people with brick and mortar, like shops, for example, they're fucked by what's happening, right? Energy bills skyrocketing. That really affects people who have like people who do manufacturing, or people who do retail, or people who work in the service industry, especially like restaurants and stuff. They use huge amounts of power because you've got to have ovens on all the time. All that they get taken apart by the energy bills increase, and these people also have to rent commercial real estate to be able to have these brick and mortar shops and things like that. So they're also facing all of the same crises that you get from increase in property costs and land costs and the increase in energy costs. And the government clearly doesn't even work for them either. They just work for people in the city who move numbers around on their computer screens and get paid millions of pounds for it.
Yep.
Get a grip on the country. My fear now about a general election straight away would be that the instability goes deeper and deeper for longer and longer. So my own view would be, let's not have a general election this side of Christmas. Let's stabilize the country, stabilize people's businesses, mortgages, and personal finances. But I'm sure the clamour will grow.
And then the old are frozen to death. Problem solved.
Yep. Brilliant.
From the start of next year to do it as soon as possible. But I would say just be cautious about rushing to it. Right now, we're at a delicate point.
Come in.
I hear what you say, Tony, and I think the new Chancellor has stabilised the markets, and I think he's tried to rebuild the relationships with the Bank of England and the OBR and the Treasury and the institutions that we have. But the Truss government has sacrificed the long-term financial predictability of this country. It's made us look like an emerging market. And the fact that the Conservatives are now intending to go into yet another leadership contest, apparently unable to even unite around one person again, really says to me that stability is not going to be provided by the Conservatives. So I think we do need a general election.
And Kuna, let me ask you, because you were working in Number 10 when David Cameron resigned back in 2016. I mean, there's a human drama going on here as well. I mean, Liz Truss, she came out, she put a smile on her face, she said a speech to the Electoral, and then she skedaddled out of there, back into Number 10. When David Cameron resigned, I mean, how painful was that?
Well, I was thinking today that...
I don't fucking care. What the fuck? What's this, the fucking hug box hour for Tory cunts who have killed people?
I know, right? Oh, well, yeah, I
hope
understand.
I hope it hurt him. Yeah.
I understand the, people might be losing their homes, but have you considered that maybe Jonathan Gullis might be sad? Or Diddums?
Liz Truss is probably not happy right now, and that makes me erect.
Oh my God, I came a little bit when I heard that she was miserable.
A little bit. Yeah.
David Cameron called the EU referendum partly to settle the internal rifts within the Conservative Party, didn't he? Do you remember that? That went really well. Yeah, look, of course it's a human drama. I have enormous respect for people like Graham and Jess who are prepared to put themselves up for election. That requires a level of courage. But I'm really sorry to the guy in the front row. You are right. Everyone knew what Liz Truss was like. Yeah. All the MPs who had worked with her knew what she was like. She set out her platform in the contest. And Rishi Sunak stood against her and he said, this is exactly what's going to happen. Yeah. These are your tax cuts are delusional. And she was not put in by the MPs. She was put in by a handful of Conservative Party members, and some of you may be in this room. a handful of people in this country were given the opportunity to choose the next Prime Minister. And I don't think we should go through that again. The Conservatives are now apparently intending to do the same thing again, but within a week. And there's a company called Tortoise Media, and it has signed up, as Conservative Party members, a tortoise, an American, and a Ukrainian, and they paid £25 each. And that tortoise and that American, who are all fictitious, by the way, are now eligible to vote in this election. So what does that say about our democracy? We need a general election because we cannot afford to go through.
Also, we've shown from what happened when they elected Liz Truss, right? When the members chose Liz Truss, you can't trust them. These people are idiots. These people literally have fridge temperature IQ in Celsius, not in Fahrenheit, in Celsius. That's how low these people IQs are. They're actual vegetables. Clearly, the Conservative membership are. If they were happy to put in Liz Truss, mixing up the Black Sea and the Baltic Sea, miss pork markets, miss importing cheese, miss selling away our trade deal to New Zealand, miss thinking that Rostov and Voronezh were in Ukraine, right? The person who embarrasses us on a world stage, not only as an international trade secretary, not only as foreign secretary, not only as head of DEFRA, allowing us to pump shit into our little rivers, and also whilst being the prime minister, destroying the economy, makes a global laughing stock, right? I'm not a patriotic person. I don't give a shit. And I think, quite frankly, it's good that this country is having some global humiliation. I think the people of this country need it to get some fucking perspective for once, right? But the idea that after all of this shit, and that we know that she's literally she's just a massive idiot, and after all of that, the Conservative membership still thought that she was good enough to lead the country. And if that's any reason that these people should never be allowed to choose someone of this amount of power again, then I don't know what is.
Yeah, absolutely. Although I do trust a fictional tortoise more than I do actual
a Tory member. Oh, quite. So, I mean, absolutely. The integrity of the election is now greater that they've signed up those fictitious characters.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I have more faith in it now than I did before.
Do that again.
Wow. Right. Let's hear someone with a lot of hands up. Yes, the man there in the glass in the dark sweater.
Just on that, two things to that. I think we knew the same about Boris Johnson before he came into the office as well.
What the fuck?
But also, funnily enough, since her resignation, the pound has bounced back, restabilizing itself.
This is a Guess Who character. This is not a real person. This is has he got glasses? Has he got a beard? Yes, and it's him. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
curly hair.
It's just a room full of some of the oddest looking. It's Cheltenham. Yeah, it's Cheltenham.
I think it's
if we had a
although he is absolutely right in that we knew think what I said. If you think what I said about Liz Truss was bad about her, all the embarrassing stuff that she did as international trade secretary and as foreign secretary as PM, Boris Johnson literally had conspired to have a journalist beaten up, but putting things he didn't like in newspaper. He's not just stupid, delusional, and hapless. He's also terrifyingly awful, right? He's also just an evil human who calls Muslim women bank robbers and who calls gay men tank top bum boys and African people pickaninnies with watermelon smiles. That man is, and he's right. These people knew. Everybody knew how awful he was, and the Tory members made him the leader again, and then also the general public made him leader, made him prime minister as well.
Well, yeah, true, yeah, but the Tories especially, Tories are scum. We know that they just are. Look at the cavalcade of shit they've elected over the years.
100%. Yeah.
Functional government.
You think we bounce back even stronger? Yes, the woman in the red top here at the front.
The scenes in the House of Commons last night. The chaos in the lobbies. Charles Walker, the MP, spoke so eloquently about the state of the Conservative Party. I'm a lifelong Conservative, and I couldn't agree with him more. The fact Graham, I think, didn't know whether or not it was even a vote of no confidence, I think that's correct to say. The Conservative Party's gone from Rachel's brother, who I think, frankly, was a moral vacuum, and I honestly thought they couldn't come up with anyone worse.
True.
They found someone who trashed the economy, ruined the Conservative Party for a generation, and I hear what Tony says, but I can't see the alternative when the country and the Conservative Party are in the absolute state that they are.
Now, that's interesting you're saying that as a Conservative voter. Obviously, as I said at the beginning of the programme, we select you very carefully. As you know, you've all been individually spoken to, and we've gone through your social media and all sorts, to make sure that you represent the electoral picture of of England, because that's the nation we're in. So more of here voted Conservative than for any other single party, because we're reflecting Parliament at the moment. Let me just get a show of hands. It's not scientific, but it's just to get an idea. Who here would like a general election? Gosh, that's almost all of you. Not quite all of you, but almost all of you. What does that make you think, Graham?
Well,
I don't care.
Obviously, the situation today with the Prime Minister resigning has upset everyone, and people see...
But do you think you should give them a general...
No, it hasn't upset everyone. I was fucking hilarious. It didn't upset me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Best news I had in all week. Best news since the last massive resignation.
Yeah, absolutely. We are banter timeline pilled, like, and eternally at this point, because there's no alternative to neoliberalism now. Whatever. I'm just gonna enjoy the reality TV. Twitch politics has now become real life politics in the UK. That's literally what it is now. It's just Twitch politics.
Guardian, when you've got Johnson going on about globalist elites and Braverman going on about tofu eating wokerati, but Nick Jacob Rees-Mogg's going to come to the call Starmer a cock or something. Like, what's next?
Exactly. We're gonna have a shadow minister for cat boys.
Yes, let's go.
Let's fucking do it.
A they them government. Fuck
absolutely, bloody exactly.
General election. Now, when you see that response, I say it's not scientific, but this is a very carefully selected audience.
You didn't the people who didn't want to have a general election, but
no, I'm going to speak to those people as well. I'm just asking you.
Hang on a minute. Okay, dickhead. Look, there weren't that many people who didn't want one.
Yeah.
Like, statistically, it'd be difficult if you did random picking. It'd be difficult to find one. Like, that's the embarrassing. What a chump.
Or it's not, because I'm going to come to it.
No. We have under our constitution, we're not a presidential system. We have a parliamentary democracy. And under our system for hundreds of years, if you can command a majority, and that's proved problematic for our recent leaders, but if you can command a majority in the House of Commons, it's your duty to govern in a parliamentary democracy. And we will, over the coming days, seek
governing. When's the governing going to start? I'd like to see some governing. There's been no governing going on for some years. I wasn't necessarily happy with much of the governing, but what we've got this weekend. So today, for example, an enormous and years-long piece of work about child abuse has come to its end, and a report has gone, a huge report saying that there is an epidemic of child abuse in our country. But instead of dealing with it, the government are currently very unedifyingly going through their Rolodexes and tweeting which one of the people that they're going to support. The NHS is in crisis in every home, and it's whether Grant Shapps can use Excel, like that makes him some sort of amazing dude. I don't know. Like, when are you going to govern? Because for the past year at least, it has been all you have governed is your own survival, and the country is on its knees.
No, I appreciate I appreciate the words. If you take it out of its context completely of who's saying it, fair play. Yeah. But like, she was very happy that Jeremy Corbyn lost to the last election.
Yeah, she was busy when there needed to be an opposition, when there was a political crisis going on between 2016 and 2019, right? We needed to have a unified force on the other to try and oppose the shit that has led to her outburst of anger there, and she was busy talking about stabbing people in the front.
Yeah, exactly. The jam man.
Yep.
What we actually add is that we have the lowest unemployment rate since 1974.
And the lowest
we've led the world on net zero, both at home by cutting our emissions by more than any other major developed country in the world. We've led the world internationally with hosting COP20.
So you shouldn't mind putting yourself the public if you've got such a cracking record.
Yes, I didn't interrupt you. And leading the world internationally at COP.
You've got nothing to fucking say.
Yeah.
You're an empty husk. There's nothing to you. I didn't interrupt you. So what?
26, and moving from, under my colleague Alex Sharma, we've gone from 30% of the world's GDP covered by net zero to 90%. We have been governing, and we've seen the country through the pandemic with furlough and the other issues there. We're seeing the country through the pressures at the moment, which we're seeing elsewhere. You can see the crisis afflicting all sorts of other countries and globally, and we're making sure.
What is he talking about now?
Yeah,
this is nothing. They're running on the complete fumes. It's empty. The tank is empty.
Like that's the thing. That's the thing about the Conservative Party is they only ever live in electioneering world. They never live in governing mode. They only live in the mode to which they feel like they implement stuff that wins them the next election. That's why they're very happy to talk about flagship policies, right? Remember when Boris Johnson was in the death throes of his premiership, and they will talk about him getting the big calls right.
He got all the big calls right.
That was their line. That's the line that they went with, right? And the same line they're going with now. We did furlough. We're doing energy price guarantee, right? Okay, brilliant. You had some flagship policies that may have gone well, may have not, but I think they probably did go well, right? They may not have been perfect, but they probably did go well. But that's not what governing is. That's not the entirety of what governance is, right? That's why the NHS and the rest of our public services are absolutely on their fucking knees, as Jess rightly points out, because they've forgotten that they have to do the rest of the governing other than just having flagship policies that gets them elected in 5 years' time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the actual governors are phenomenally boring, unsexy parade of grim meetings about policy documents and stakeholders and fucking lobbyists and blah 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 blah, and you have to cross all your I's and dot your T's and do all of the hard work. And we're now seeing the inevitable outcome of the Boris Johnson working like 2 hours a day maybe, and then getting pissed all the fucking time in Downing Street. They weren't doing that. They've let everything fall through the fucking cracks. And now you've got a team of absolute incompetent ideological twats, not even barely trying to mop up this shit at this point. There's nothing. And so everything's just fucking completely wankered because of laziness and, like you say, not really giving a fuck about governing, just putting forward vague policy suggestions like 40 new hospitals, 100 squillion pounds a week for the NHS. Just make promises. You don't have to keep them. Who cares? The media will just say you got all the calls right. Yeah,
because come the next election, you'd have done the stuff that you need to get elected because that's all you care about doing. Because the Tories are an election-winning juggernaut. They've won more elections than any other political party in the history of the world in any country, right? Like, they literally, their bread and butter is winning elections, and they do it because they don't care about actually having to go through any amount of governing. And that's why that they attack the civil service. That's why they attack public service, why they attack the public sector, because they know that if the public took the public sector's side, they'd get turfed out because then people would realise what they have done to the public sector, A, through mismanagement, and B, through ideological purges, like purging of both finance and of human capital as well. Because literally, remember when civil servants who opposed like a bunch of stuff that was happening during the Brexit period, they literally just got turfed out of the civil under the kind of the Brexit malaise of 2018, 2019, 2020, right? Like, I cannot stress heavily enough how bad the Tories are at governing. At least Blair, when Blair was in charge, he may have been a bad prime minister, right? The war in Iraq may have been an absolute like evil thing to do, right? Or at least the services that we had and the job of the state was properly fulfilled by the Blair administration, because at least they knew what they were doing and cared about knowing what they were doing, and the Tories just don't, and they never have done. And it's this is long con, this absolute objective myth that these are the people of sound economics or of good governance or of stability. They never have been, they never will be, and I'm glad that the public now sees it for what it is.
Yeah, I just hope they remember that, and we don't get in 5-10 years time some new shiny-faced wanker, some David Cameron 2.0.
Oh no, we won't get David Cameron 2.0. We're going to get Suella Braverman Mark 2. That's what we're going to get, because what will happen is that if Labour do get into power, they'll have to deal with this economic new fallout that's happened, and they won't be able to do what they even wanted to do, even the very small things they wanted to do, and there'll be some kind of economic malaise that's gone on for all of this time as a result of the stupid policies that we've had over the last 4 weeks or whatever. That's going to happen, right? But now that the Tories can't run on economic credibility, because I think most people kind of remember that they kind of caused it, so what's left for the Conservative Party? It's social conservatism. It's the other side of their electoral mandate, which is the people who vote for them because they're hardcore Christians, because they're racists. They're people who believe in, the fundamental nature of the family, all that kind of stuff, right? So what possible platform can they run on? And it's fascism. That's what it is.
So it's going to be... It's going to be Trans Day of the Rope, then, basically.
Oh yeah, of course. It's going to be a moral panic. It's going to be, I know that the economy is bad, but here's a scapegoat that you can blame. I think we might the Labour Party of 2022 to 2023 to 2028 or whatever is going to be like the SDP of the 1930s. I really think so.
The SDP of the 1930s.
Yeah, like the SDP in Germany.
Oh, sorry. I thought you meant the fucking the Labour split in the 70s. Sorry.
No, yeah, like it's gonna we have the economic malaise coming out of like an economic crisis, right? Where the Social Democrats slowly try and build things up, but can't really do so. Plus, there's a lot of constitutional issues, and there's going to be someone who comes along with the grand solution in alternative terms. I'm really scared about what that could theoretically do. We've seen what happened because Italy are essentially having what we're having, but 5 years earlier, right? They had all of their economic malaise 5 years ago or 10 years ago, and they're having their fascist moment now. When do we get to that point?
I don't know if you've been following that. There's been some weird chicanery going on in Italy. Like really odd stuff. They Silvio Berlusconi's party, which is part of the governing coalition, he being of the former prime minister, who's corrupt as fuck and a weird sex pest, awful man, should be in prison, but never mind. His party, one of the ministers that was from his party, tried to put up a picture of Silvio Berlusconi in the office of the ministry. And it was taken down by a civil servant under basic rule, and his party have now the coalition because they've made him look bad or some shit. Like there's some talks behind the scene about Berlusconi pulling out, which is ironic, I suppose. But it's fucking wild shit. Yeah,
mad shit. Berlusconi's a strange character.
He is. Please hurry up, Reaper. You've got either him or fucking Kissinger. Come on now.
I mean, he's very similar to Boris Johnson, isn't he?
Yeah, similar.
Price guarantee and the energy prices bill, which I was part
of the team. Considerably less than it was originally planned.
Well, not in terms of significant impact, and it means that it's protecting families and businesses up and down the country. We are governing, but I understand the anger, disappointment and frustration that people feel today. That doesn't change the constitutional position. It doesn't change the fact that Tony's right, that what we've actually got to do is make sure and statesmanlike way, and I know that's not how we've always conducted ourselves, we put the national interest first.
Statesmanlike. Boris Johnson now want to be statesmanlike.
Letting the bodies pile high like a statesman.
Well, yeah, Hitler. Yeah. Hitler was a statesman.
True.
And Jess can scoff all she likes, but
I'd like to see a statesman amongst...
The election is the very opposite of stability, it's instability.
For you, yeah.
Now, hang on, Rich, there's loads of hands up, so I'm going to come round. She said, keep your hands up, but Rachel, let's hear from you.
Well, I think that what we hear from Graham Stewart is the only thing that is actually uniting the Tory party is terror of a general election, because even if Margaret Thatcher came back, reincarnated with Mother Teresa in her handbag, she could not win this election for the Tories now. And, I mean, don't forget that the most successful Tory...
Well, that would be an interesting combo because they were both fucking charlatans.
Absolutely. I don't think Margaret Thatcher has a great approval rating in 2022.
No, that is true.
Politician of...
Can we get some lulls in chat for Margaret Thatcher still being dead?
She is indeed still dead. Isn't that great? That's some more good news for today.
Exactly. Still gone. Fuck yes. I saw there was again one of the memes. I didn't realise that Rishi Sunak, he's only 5'3", apparently.
Yeah,
which I didn't I knew he was short, but 5'3", that is pretty fucking tiny. Anyway,
quite short.
and someone had like Rishi Sunak's about to become the second shortest prime minister in history, and the one at the bottom was Margaret Thatcher minus 6 feet. But that, I mean, to be fair, that's joint shortest because most of them are dead. To be fair.
The moment is a lettuce that has ousted Liz Truss in office. So just
but actually, for those who are not aware, that's because a national newspaper, the Daily Star, I think, has been running a picture of a lettuce saying, could Liz Truss outlast the lettuce?
Well, let's not bury the lead here. It was actually The Economist and that article where they said her actual running time was about that of the store, was it the shelf life of a lettuce, which became itself a meme, which the Daily Star then ran with. And to be honest with you, the Daily Star has been a leading satire outfit for the last week, and that's a weird place for the country to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's done a better job than the fucking Private Eye.
See, someone in my chat makes a really good point. Like, if, for example, if there was a general election, right, and then Keir Starmer became Prime Minister, and then 2 years down the line there's some scandal that means he resigns, and Jeremy Corbyn wins the leadership election, and Jeremy Corbyn becomes Prime Minister, would the Tories be demanding a general election? Of course they would, 100%.
Crumbly crumbles, dictatorship. I mean, to be honest with you, if that happened, I think there would actually be a military coup. I think that would actually happen.
Yeah.
Obviously, lettuce have famously short shelf lives. I think the lettuce did last.
It did. It won. The lettuce won. But what I would say to Jess is you can't have it both ways. You can't accuse the Tory party of not governing and then say, and we need a general election, because, as we know, we've had a Scottish referendum 2015, EU referendum 2016, general election 2017, general election 2019.
Oh no, we've had democracy. We've had vague attempts at democracy in recent years. Therefore, my brother should just be imposed on the country again to elect piss to run rampant throughout Parliament.
Yeah, like people for some reason in this country they just hate democracy. I don't know why. It's really weird.
Yeah, well, exactly. Like the fact that we didn't fall to fascism in the 30s, it will never stop being mental to me.
Miracle.
I don't know how it happened. There we go.
General election has.
Actually, yes, I do. I'm being facetious. The hard work of incredible progressive forces at the time, and
also,
Battle of Cable Street, etc., etc.
What's interesting with Rachel Johnson here saying, well, you can't also say that they're not governing whilst also calling for a general election. Well, no, one follows from the other. There, Rachel. That's not hypocritical.
Yeah, exactly,
Like they are not governing, so we need to turf them out and get in somebody who is prepared to govern. Like.
Yeah, there is a direct correlation between one point and the other.
Yeah.
It literally one is the reason that the other is correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But never mind.
Has to be held by January 2025. It will be a displacement activity that will deter any government, any prime minister, any chancellor from governing. So just bear that in mind. Be careful what you wish for. But I do tend to agree that we have come to a point of paralysis, and that I think the country is crying out to have some say in what happens next.
Also, what's also crazy as well.
Here, so let's get round you. Got to.
Like, and she's right. There's a huge amount of paralysis and they're unable to govern. They have an 80-seat majority. 80 seats.
Yeah.
How the fuck can they not govern with 80s? That's how dysfunctional these dickheads are. That they have a gigantic majority, the biggest majority since since the 80s, right? Since 40 years since a bigger majority than what they have now.
30 years, please. Come on.
Sorry, 40 years. 83, wasn't it? 2022.
No, 87, Thatcher got a sizable majority. So by 92, they still had a reasonable majority. So we're talking 30 years.
I guess. I make more sense. But this is, as far as huge majorities go.
I just don't want to feel old, because I was born in 87.
Okay, fair. Touche. But like, and that just shows how unfit for office these people are. That with such a huge majority that they have, they cannot govern at all.
Yeah.
With
such a massive majority, they're having to physically accost people and force them to vote the way they don't want to vote.
Yeah.
That just doesn't seem like an appropriate look or stable. I mean, it really is the strong and stable thing will live to haunt them for a long time.
Like for generations to come, yeah.
They've been nothing but weak and feeble ever since.
Absolutely.
Well, other than Johnson, aided and abetted by a political / media elite, and I don't mean Jewish people there. I mean literally, they've
an actual Viscount. Yeah, our country is not a real country; it's just a Renaissance festival.
Basically, yes. Yeah. And ironically, he stacked the House of Lords with his friends and / Russian spies. He other than that moment where they got the majority, they've been fucking awful, corrupt, shitty.
Yep.
Yes. Blonde.
I think in line with Rachel Johnson's point there, I think possibly we have to ask ourselves, with the amount of political infighting that we've seen, which is quite frankly embarrassing and humiliating for us as a country, and with the amount of incompetence we've seen from our politicians, perhaps we need a little bit more than a general election. Perhaps we need, UK electoral reform, including proportional representation.
Based.
Yeah, I mean, the worst part is you can just see the rightoids like the switch flips in their head. Suddenly, when it looks like it's going to be a massive Labour majority, suddenly it's like, oh no! Well, think of the vote split. Think of how many seats we would have gotten with proportional representation. Like, you weren't very keen on proportional representation when you were winning massive majorities off a minority of the vote, despite the fact that the other parties in Parliament all had a unifying message of opposing the Tories.
I'd still absolutely, because they would be biting off their own. In the face biting off their nose to spite their face. Because regardless of what particular type of system you have, whether it's absolute proportional representation or alternative vote, whatever, the Tories by themselves, if it's a natural fair fight, could never form a majority. They don't get 50% of the vote.
That is true.
They just don't.
I'm going to make an argument against proportional representation and for ranked choice voting. Right? So alternative, well, we guess we do call it alternative vote over here. In that the issue is, right, what we need, and I think we both agree that what the country needs is structural reform from the ground up. Basically, we need to wholesale find some new economic system of management, because clearly neoliberalism has run its course. It cannot continue, right? But the issue is so many of our institutions are embedded in neoliberalism that to be able to get that change, you need like a proper majority, right? You need an actual majority to be able to do that. Obviously, the problem is Keith Starmer doesn't want to do that. Sir Keith Starmer, Casey, does not want to do that root and branch reform of our political system because he cares too much about power, right? Maybe he might do it down the line. I don't think he will, but he theoretically could. And you can't do that when the Labour Party has to get itself into power by allying itself with the Liberal Democrats, who at the end of the day are neoliberals, right? They, especially since Charles Kennedy passed away, they've just wholesale accepted neoliberalism just with nicer social policy, really. And there's only one, and like maybe there might be enough Green MPs to get it through, but I don't think that would happen. Whereas if you choose alternative votes, you choose like a two-party preferred ranked choice vote, you still give people their voter power back, right? The issue with that first past vote is everyone's voter power is tiny because like 70% or such, of like up to 70% of a seats of votes are not counted in first past the post. Your voter power is tiny, whereas in a two-party preferred, it's usually only, it's basically 49% of each seat. The people at most cannot have their vote counted, right? Other than that, you at least get some amount of sway on your seat. And also, so you can still have the big majorities. You still push out the random fringe racist parties as well, because they would never get enough second preference to be able to get the seats at the end of the day. And also you keep the constituency link to Parliament as well. So I think, as far as I'm concerned, I would be pushing for a ranked choice system rather than proportional representation, and that is my case against proportional representation. I don't know what you think about that.
No, I prefer to just have one party, one leader rule, and that leader would be Juan Guaido.
Absolutely. Interim Prime Minister.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, if you can just decide to be Prime Ministers of places, let's go for it.
True. I've declared myself interim Prime Minister, yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. I was Prime Minister for half an hour earlier. I decided against it, though. It was too much pressure, But
The
on a
EU
serious
said we've got 7 years.
on a serious point, you actually make a good argument in favour of ranked choice votes. I didn't want to just do a meme. I thought I'd actually answer the question.
Ideally, I think proportional representation is a better system, right? But it's better in like it's a better system when you have a European social democracy, or at least something that represents some kind of social democracy, where there is at least some kind of push pull between the disparate political ideologies of capitalism, right? Like, sure, like I get it in somewhere like Germany or Norway or somewhere like that, right? I get it far more. But our country is so far gone down the neoliberal source part that there's just we can't just let policy stagnate into consensus politics, because otherwise things will just get worse and worse and worse.
Can we just stop the home counties from voting?
Old
really
people.
help.
Stop old people from voting. Maximum voting age.
Yeah. You get to fucking you get to, I don't know, 60. No, 50. Let's go 50.
50.
You get to 50, you can't vote anymore. You've had your fucking chance. By the time the policies of this government come to fruition, you will be dead. Therefore, you have no investment in this. Fuck yourself.
Well, it's funny how essentially remember when we were growing up, and then we were being told, don't believe anything. Don't believe everything that you read on the internet, guys. Your internet may seem newfangled and fantastical to you, but people will not be truthful on there. And then that's the generation that grew up to believe all the boomer book conspiracy theories.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The fucking, oh god, I had to disabuse my father the other day of he showing me a video that someone had sent him. And it was the idea of cashless society, the idea of getting rid of physical cash. Mm-hmm. And there was it was like a British of Alex Jones, basically. And he was talking about how this was being done to control you, and how they were going to use it like social credit, like they do in China. And blah.
Was it Samuel Leeds?
They're going to stop you buying seeds so that you have to rely on agribusiness. Who the fuck's stopping you from buying seeds? What are you talking about?
That's a very that kind of brain poison is really pervasive amongst the boomer class at the moment.
Yeah, because they've got they're so wed to the idea of like people in media telling the truth because they grew up thinking that they did.
Richard,
that is, that they just think, well, it's on the internet, it wouldn't be a lie. Anyway, freedompatriot.win has told me that actually Liz Truss is a lizard, and therefore I'm gonna do a terrorism or something.
Save the planet, and all we're doing is political infighting. We've got children in our schools coming in starving and cold, and none of this is being addressed because what we're doing is talking about lettuces and who's going to outlast who. I mean, it's ridiculous. We need action, and we need it now. We need a general election.
Okay. Man there in the blue stripy top.
To be honest, I just find the whole situation quite depressing.
Of course, Lizard Truss. Oh, she wasn't even hiding it. Oh, God. There the whole time. Oh, how could we have been so blind?
I think, as others have said, it's quite embarrassing. I mean, we're supposed to be a modern, progressive democracy. And, frankly, we've got a climate emergency, we've got the cost of living crisis, issues that, frankly, there's not enough time to list. And all of these people in the cabinet, they just seem to be thinking about their own interests and their own jobs. So they don't seem to understand that life exists outside of the Westminster bubble. There's a real world out there, and there are real struggles. And I think for the country to move forward, the only way to sort it out is to have that general election. They can't put in a second Prime Minister who has no mandate, who's unelected. We do live in a democracy. That's the key. It's a democracy. Let the people decide.
What's interesting as well, pause it 1 sec, is that it's interesting when the Conservative person made the point, right? That that's not how it constitutionally works, right? We're a parliamentary democracy. Parliament chooses the Prime Minister, and then they govern in the interests of the MPs that we elect as MPs, right? And that's a point that you can make if all that you believe in is following the rules, which is obviously a very liberal idea. Yeah. But you can tell, right? Everyone has a secret leftist inside them, because everyone knows when the rules are not okay. Everyone knows when you have to break the rules to get positive utility out of things that's happening, or you're following some kind of axiomatic value in the belief in democracy, which I think both of us share. I think most of the people, if you ask them if they had a belief in democracy, they would say yes, even though in practicality they really don't, right? But they understand, even though it would be defying all convention, they all know that just to fix this, you have to get the election. The election just has to happen. It can't not happen because they understand. There's this visceral understanding that democracy is being undermined, even though technically, as far as the letter of the law states, it really, really isn't, because that's just how things are supposed to work. But if it doesn't actually function, then it doesn't actually work.
Yeah, exactly. Just focusing on just following the rules is how you end up with well, look, the Reichstag burned down and they passed a law that gives him all these powers. Therefore, it's perfectly legal. Like, yeah, sometimes rules are made that are really fucked up and need to be fought against.
Yeah.
And I would argue the democratic deficit at the very core of the British constitutional arrangement is one of those, or a series of those.
Well, it's the thing that's happening to the Democrats in America as well, right? Where they feel like that if they just stick and play by the rules, they'll get vindicated in the long run. I know you're just going to get destroyed by the party who only cares about power.
Yeah, exactly. Like, how many times do they have to change the rules for themselves? But they did the whole thing with, we're not going to let Obama have a Supreme Court pick in his dead duck period, or in his lame duck period. And then as soon as Trump's in his lame duck period, oh no, we need to force this through right now.
Exactly. And whereas the Democrats are going,
guys, what are you doing? You can't just whinge about it.
Yeah, and then the Democrats are like, no, we can't pass the PRO Act, we can't pass the voting rights bill, we can't pass 15
filibuster. The GOP might not play by the rules.
Yeah,
they're not playing by the rules.
But we can't pass £15 minimum wage because of the Senate parliamentarian. Fuck the Senate parliamentarian. Who cares?
True.
Either the policy is good. If the policy is good and you think it'll work and you have the ability to get it through, just put it into fucking law.
No, this Bilderberg, it's not. He says the left need to play dirty. I don't even think you need to play dirty. You just need to be strong. Now, don't get me wrong. Occasionally playing dirty is necessary, especially in extreme circumstances. And I would suggest we find ourselves in that place right now. But it's not a matter of necessarily having to play dirty. It's just being strong. It's not, and I don't mean that in some fascistic sense. I mean literally just standing up, fighting for what's correct,
being
rather than just going, well, they did they did pass a law that said we can't protest anymore. Well, fuck that. I don't care.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not how
Absolutely
it should
right.
fucking go down.
And for something like the Senate parliamentarian or the filibuster, that's just convention. That's nothing. There's no utility to any of this. Not even a proper rule. It's just convention that they decided to follow for the sake of following convention at their own detriment, and they're going to get hammered in the midterms, and they fucking deserve it. I'm sorry, they do.
Well, they do. Well, exactly. Yeah, they're doing. Well, I'm not entirely sure they will get hammered just because the GO are so bad. But regardless, we'll wait and see on that, I guess. They're hoping that the gentleman's agreement will stick, but the people on the other side aren't gentlemen.
No.
So I don't know why you're expecting them to go along with that.
Yeah.
They're just not going to.
Yeah, 100%.
Struck me when I saw chaos yesterday with everyone in tears and that going on was, what if at that moment something had happened on the world stage? What if Putin had done something? What if there'd been some international crisis somewhere else? Are we really being told that those people would be able to pull themselves together and actually deal with that to the standard?
Is she suggesting that Vladimir Putin missed his opportunity to invade Britain?
I mean, If
Is that what you're suggesting?
If I was Vladimir Putin and the European leader who was most backing Ukraine was in the middle of a fight with a lettuce, I would think, maybe now is the right time to launch a tactical nuclear warhead in the Donbass, or actually it wouldn't be in the Donbass, but it would probably be in one of the non-occupied territories, right? Probably in Dnipro or something like that, or Sumy. Yeah. It wouldn't be Sumy. Sumy's too close to actual Russia or Kyiv.
Ironically, just for the memes, for the lols, nuke Chernobyl.
Or Zaporizhia.
Fuck it. Yeah, exactly, yeah. Just, go be like, Chernobyl 2, electric boogaloo, just fucking kibosh the entirety of Eastern Europe. Fuck it.
Like, if you genuinely want to be more strong, Dan Hodges was pointing this out on Twitter. It was like, yeah, Vladimir Putin's watching this, right? A time of geopolitical uncertainty, having people in power who literally haven't got a fucking clue it's terrifying. It's legitimately terrifying. I'm scared of nuclear war at the moment, right? I don't know whether I should be or not, but I am.
Yeah, no, I think it's right to be concerned. I don't know about worried, but concerned, certainly. We're a lot closer than we have been for 30 plus years.
Yeah.
Probably since before
all of the Soviet Union.
Yeah. Or Gorbachev, I suppose. Yeah, they've the memes. They've projected the fucking lettuce onto Parliament. It's a great piece of advertising for the Daily Star. Let's be honest. That's a solid piece of PR work. Amazing. What a world we live in.
Love it.
That we need, because I wasn't convinced they would be able to.
And did that frighten you?
It did, really, because I thought, well, you know, the whole world's watching, but you think that could just be the moment. I mean, we know Ben Wallace has been over to Washington and things. We know things are very dicey. And you think at that moment, it would have just been chaos. We wouldn't have been able to have a suitable response. Our allies wouldn't have been able to rely on us. And that, I think, that's why I think we do need an election, because I just don't think they're capable of functioning to the standard we need.
Now, most of you put your hands up saying you did want a general election. A few of you didn't. So you don't want a general election. So let's just to get a different view. See your neck shirt there.
I wouldn't advocate a general election at the moment. I think from the point that was made, we need a balance and we need to steady the markets. But the government at the moment, and I do agree with Graham, you have led a lot over the years across a lot of the different spectrums of politics, but now you are leading the way in higher mortgages.
Yeah, Eminent 7, we are definitely the tofu-eating Wilcarati, although I don't read The Guardian, though, it's too transphobic.
Kate, we should not have a general election. I don't see how we cannot.
So even though you don't want one.
Scottish people get everywhere.
Yeah, anyone else who doesn't want a general election?
Also, speaking of Scottish people,
the woman there.
Speaking of Scottish people, hasn't Nicola Sturgeon? She's outlasted every single prime minister since.
Well, she was. Yeah, actually, I didn't. Hang on, did I bookmark it? She was dunking on well, Tories in general, I guess. Did I bookmark?
I saw one where it was.
Just... Yeah. So Phil Sims says, is Liz Truss said to leave office without ever having a formal meeting or even phone call with Nicola Sturgeon? And Sturgeon responds, she doesn't mind. I'll now just wait for whoever will become the 5th MP so far during my time as First Minister. Winky face.
Although it's going to be, it reminds you of like, I saw someone do the meme. Do you know the Assad must go memes?
Yes.
Someone did that with Nicola Sturgeon, where it's just like all 4 of the prime ministers going, Sturgeon must go. Who must go? And then the picture of them resigning every time.
Lovely stuff. A Sturgeon from the top rope. Good to see.
Absolutely. What a queen.
Jackie.
No, we certainly don't.
Anyway, I think they're having a base off between Drakeford and Sturgeon. Did you see him get really mad in the Welsh?
Oh my god, it was so cathartic. He spoke for the nation right then, didn't he?
Exactly. Yeah.
I think people like Drakeford, even though he's a Corbyn stan, right? He's on the left of the party. And people in Wales just they know what's up. They know what's up in Wales.
Well, for a start, he governs well. He's like clearly is a rather effective bureaucrat, and when he wants to look, he looks like a supply teacher from
a friendly supply teacher.
Yeah, just a nice old bloke. The kind of old bloke you leave. You hold the door open for at the shop or something, right? And yet he's got clearly there's a rod of iron there inside him. I appreciate it. Also, that fucking MTG Davis, or what the fuck his name is a cunt. Smarmy fucking wanker.
Yeah.
The Welsh Tory leader.
Yeah,
Andrew
really
C.T. Davis.
Yeah.
So we do not have a proper opposition anyway, and I think that's the problem. If we had a proper opposition, maybe the government would govern.
True.
Okay. I suspect we're going to be talking about what Labour might do if it came to general election moment. Tony, you wanted to come in there.
Yeah, look, it looks like the audience has a pretty clear view about wanting a general election. The one thing I would say, I mean, I think we should wait, but the one thing I would say about the next few days, Graham, is that I think the Conservative Party probably have a last chance moment in the next few days to show a level of stability, grip, national interest first. If what we have in the next few days is
in the next few days,
how the fuck is that possibly going to happen? They're literally going to be like stabbing each other in the back, trying to get to the fucking top of the greasy pole. Like they're having a like the shittery we saw play out over 2 months. They're going to condense into 7 or 8 days.
Oh, absolutely.
It's going to be a fucking bloodbath.
I'm looking forward to whatever. Do you remember when on the, I think it was an interview, Pippa Crerar just let slip on Politics Live it was, that she has like a bunch of like dirty stories about Boris Johnson that she can bring to light. As soon as he gets the nominations that he needs by Monday 2 p.m, I'm sure she will dump all of the files that she's got, all the dirt that she has on Boris Johnson, right? That will all come out. So, yeah. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be fun. And more content for the content pipe. Let's go.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look. It's difficult at the coalface meme mine some days, and then some days you just find a seam like today, and it's just it's crumbling away in your hand. It's beautiful.
Yeah, wonderful.
We're going to have surely, Tony, is because we've got until Monday.
Yeah.
Between now and Monday to come up with 2 candidates. So there's going to be a sort of frantic amount.
Let's see what happens, right? If we have a set of Conservative politicians engaged in internecine warfare about the kinds of arguments they've been having for the last 3 months, then that's a pretty bad sign, and maybe we should have that election sooner. If, however, the Conservative Party can, the country first, stability first, economy first, and do this in an orderly, quick fashion, then there may be a chance to have a bit of stability for a bit longer. They're not normal
people.
That's one of the wackest pieces of nonsense. What fucking world is his theoretical situation even remotely possible? I wouldn't even expect it. Like, even if I thought the Tory party were anything other than fucking dog shit, I wouldn't expect a political party to coalesce and govern in the national interest during a leadership election. That's when they do navel gazing. That's sort of the, I guess, of having new leaders, isn't it? To turn things over and refresh and find a fucking political reason to exist. And they're going to try and condense that into a week. It's going to be fucking awful.
Yeah, it's going to be absolutely
Which is brilliant. It's fucking brilliant for the memes. It's brilliant for the content. But it's not very good for the country, and unfortunately, we do have to live here.
As much as I wish I didn't.
So I think all eyes will be on behaviours this week in the Conservative Party.
Okay. Well, look, I'm going to take another question. Listen, we're going to stay generally with this topic. I don't think that's any great surprise. But before I do, I just want to say that we in Dulwich in South London next week, and the week after that we're in Horsham in the southeast of England. So if you would like to come and be part of the Question Time audience, go to the Question Time website. You can follow the instructions there and come and be part of our audience. And also, incidentally, a list of all the venues will be coming to are there, so you can see it'll be coming to your area and apply. Right, let's take another question now from Stella Jennard.
Yeah. Who, in the panel's opinion, is the best candidate to take over from Liz Truss?
Well, who do you think, Stella? Might as well ask you.
In my opinion, I think it's time for the people to have their voices listened to
Right.
again. So it's time for a general election, yeah.
We've got that message loud and clear. So, Rachel.
No. I knew you were going to come to me. It's so unfair.
It's not, because you're here and world about it. So should it be Boris? You're saying you haven't spoken to him about it. I'm not sure I believe that, but I'm going to take your word for it.
I feel
do you think
so
it should be?
unfair. I feel it's so unfair to ask
All
me
these people answer. I'm going to tell you what the answer to this question should be. If I'm a Tory MP right now, I'm going to cosplay for 1 second as something that I'm furthest away from. If I'm a Tory MP, I think the only possible way that you can gain ground now is by having Penny Mordaunt as Prime Minister with Rishi Sunak as Chancellor. Because Rishi Sunak has all of the successes of Boris Johnson's administration, all of those successes can be traced back to Rishi Sunak as Chancellor, like the uprating of benefits, the increase in corporation tax, the furlough scheme, all that stuff. That's all Rishi's policies. And then you want somebody who can perform at PMQs, and that is Penny Mordaunt. We saw her at the UQ earlier this week, and she was really good against Starmer, right? If the Tory party genuinely want to rescue themselves as a political force, that is the ticket.
Bizarrely, well, assuming you could hold his MPs in check and not have millions of defections or whatever, I think actually if they went with Johnson, they probably would stand a chance still, because even though he's not in a number of ways, he's smarmy enough that he could charm enough people, and he's still very popular with the Tory party base that they could probably, maybe they don't win a majority, but they could firm things up to the point where it's not a catastrophe. at the next
Well, I think
election.
the issue with Boris
to be honest,
Johnson
in this situation, if they can avoid wipeout at the next election, that's a
yeah,
win.
true. I think that maybe if you're focused on survival rather than like casting the dice to try and win, like maybe you're right. Maybe that there's enough Boris sycophants, right? Because we mentioned this at work. I mentioned that Liz Truss had resigned at work, and then two people in the group chat at work immediately said we need Boris back. I was like, why? It's Boris, isn't it? But that was it. That was their answer.
Yeah.
So given that,
because it's Boris,
because it's Boris. I think there's enough of a pro-Boris coalition of people who like him because he's kooky, who don't really care about politics but would vote for him because he's Boris Johnson. I think that's enough of a coalition of people that they can stop them literally getting absolutely completely annihilated at the next election. But I also just don't want Boris Johnson to be Prime Minister. So like,
I don't want any of them, but especially Boris, because like he's literally already been the most corrupt motherfucker to probably ever hold that office.
The issue with Boris Johnson, I don't think is his policy platform, because I think his policy platform is fine. Obviously, it's not great, it's not good. He did bad things on with his policy, but his policy platform is the rest of the Tory party.
Compared to the other Tories, it's probably the best you're going to get, really.
Exactly. Yeah, it can't get like. It's not too bad, right? It's not bad, but the issue is that he debases the office that he holds, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like,
completely.
If the Tory membership and the parliamentary Tory party are willing to let a man who covered up from multiple sexual abuser back into the most powerful office in the land, like, they are beyond salvation. I'm sorry, they really are.
Maybe a family member, but I'm not one of the 357 remaining Tory MPs who are going to decide who gets in the final.
Our audience are going to have a view, and they're not MPs either, so come on, let's hear your view.
I'm not a member of the Conservative Party, so...
That's such a cop-out. Well, okay, you're not a member of the Conservative Party, so why are you commenting on Liz Truss stepping down as leader of the Conservative Party?
Yeah.
Like, if you want to comment on this because you've got to protect your big brother or whatever... Like, you don't get to fucking comment on anything then. Like, recuse yourself if it's that much of an issue for you.
Yeah.
Not influence the outcome of this.
So you're not going to express a view?
Well,
I mean, that's what you're on this programme for, Reg.
What do you want me to say?
Who is the best candidate?
What would it make you really happy for me to say?
What you think? Who is the best candidate to replace Liz Truss? That's what Stella's asking.
Jeremy
Corbyn. Candidate, like when Debbie met a lot of... met some beautiful. What are they called?
I'm totally wondering where you're going now.
Like her husband would emerge, a suitable husband would emerge. I'm sure we can all trust the Tory party, given recent events, to come up with the best candidate.
8 bloody weeks has told us anything is that we cannot trust the Tory party to do anything right. We can't trust them in the slightest. What the fuck are you talking about, Rachel? The Tory membership and the Tory party who put Liz Truss into the final two and then voted her over Rishi Sunak are the reason why we're in this mess right now. The only thing that we know to be true is that we cannot trust the Tory party.
Yeah.
Country forward and restore its reputation for economic competence and financial stability. Graham?
That's the idea.
Oh, she's being sarcastic.
That's the plan.
So who do you think the best is then, Graham? So you supported Grant Shapps originally in the last leadership contest, and then you switched.
Who the fuck supports Grant Shapps?
I mean, I supported Grant Shapps because he was the only person who, when asked about what a woman is, said, "I'm not getting involved in this dumb conversation. Can we talk about politics?" Literally, he was the best. He was the best candidate.
Okay. Yes. Okay. That's fair. But also, he's like one of the most incompetent human beings.
He also would have just. He would have also undermined like. The Tory party as an electoral force, which double bubble. Trans people stop being thrown under the bus for 5 minutes, for a brief period of respite for the trans community, plus downfall of the Tory party.
Win-win.
Liz Truss when he dropped out. So now Liz has dropped out. Who do you support this time?
She resigned at lunchtime today.
Well, she resigned, of course, and Grant Shapps is now Home Secretary. But as far as
I haven't decided who I will support yet, but I entirely agree with Tony. I agree, and you see the audience, as you say, selected from across the political spectrum, and you can see the level of scepticism. And I agree with Tony, and I hope many of my colleagues are in this programme, and they will get a very clear message from this. It is the behaviour of Conservative Party members, and the public is sceptical. And if we are to have any chance, and you need public consent, you need to win people over, and you can see where people are at the moment, then our behaviour is absolutely essential, and we need to behave in a way which inspires confidence and shows that we are capable of providing the stability and security and proper behaviour, as Tony put it, that this country needs if it's to be led through this period of extreme global challenge. We have a war raging in Europe. We have so many problems, and it's extraordinarily serious, and we take that seriously, and I hope everyone...
Well, look, if Jacob Rees-Mogg wants to get so argy-bargy, send him over.
Let's fucking go.
He'll sort Vlad out in no time, right?
Everyone's watching, and I hope they will, and I hope they will learn to... If they have issues and frustrations, they can do it in front of a mirror or indeed to each other, but just start showing public discipline, decent behaviour, and restore public confidence. And then we will see.
That's all very well, but you must have a view. I mean, you've only got till...
So you want to push me on the...
I do, because you've only got till Monday.
Well, I've been mostly focused on the fact that was I going to turn up today for question time?
I think in the nicest possible way, we did wonder, but we're thrilled that you're here. We're thrilled that you're here.
Mostly I've had my friends texting me about the lions and what happened to the Christians thrown to the lions, etc. But I think it's very important to be here and to represent the government.
Seriously, we're very glad that you are.
I know they were going to fire you. Unless you did it, because there's no one else.
So who are you supporting then?
I can honestly say, not only that I haven't announced, but
to be fair, I think this is slightly unfair, because it was only announced like today, and he probably was preparing for this. So like I get if he doesn't necessarily know, you know.
No, I mean, I get that, but surely that everyone knew the writing was on the bloody wall, right? Surely we all knew that it was just a matter of time, and then...
True, but I think he's like a lot of people, he's told out his vote on the basis of what you're going to give me. You know, what are your policies? What are you going to... How are you going to bend to my will?
That's why I moved from Shaps to Truss. It's also pretty ironic saying, well, I'm the climate minister who was appointed by the woman who opened up fracking and gave us all those new oil licenses. I'm like, did you really care about the climate, given your choice of leadership candidate?
Yeah, ridiculous.
No, yet.
Well, look, let's say, okay, so that's 2 don't know so far. My goodness, I mean, we're going to have the new PM by Monday or by Friday. Well, listen, we know you think about debutantes and things, Rachel, so let's
I know what would be the best story for the media and for the international,
I'm trying to get a genuine
international global interest. Trump would be thrilled. He'll think it means that he can return in 2024, you know, that get the band back together.
If it's your brother, you mean?
Yeah, of course, it's the big, you know, the big dogs back in town and all of that.
Okay.
But, you know, I just feel
answer.
we should get someone who is right for the country.
Well, let's try and find out who people think that might be. Camilla.
Isn't it pretty obvious who it ought to be? I mean, on the one hand, you don't really want anyone who's arrogant to think they can do the job, which would mean that you go for Larry the cat, or Jeremy Hunt, who's actually quite, you know, honourably said he will remain as Chancellor and stand aside. But given that we can't go for that, don't they have to go for Rishi Sunak? Because Rishi Sunak is the man who the MPs chose last time around, which was only a few weeks ago. Rishi Sunak is the man who took the fight to Liz Truss all the way through the campaign and said the difficult things and said that she was peddling...
Yes, we're going to get the re-education camps after all.
Absolutely, let's go. Let's fucking go.
...fantasy economics.
And don't forget, he didn't manage to persuade Conservative members who, unless there is a kind of coronation... Will...
But as I said earlier...
That's literally
I think that is part of the problem with the system. And by the way, just if you don't, the Conservative Party created those rules in 1998 after it had suffered a landslide. The people who created those electoral rules that let the membership vote never intended that to choose a prime minister. They were expecting that the members would choose the next leader of the party. They never intended that to be a prime minister. I really hope that the Conservatives, given they've only got a week...
Well, that's no excuse, because you know that that's how it can work. So I'm sorry, that's not like...
I mean, you are taking the admirable but incorrect opinion, like stance or assumption here that the Conservative Party is staffed by non-idiots.
Yeah, or at least democratically inclined, principled individuals.
Yeah.
Which isn't true.
No.
Issues with online voting will actually let the MPs decide, And I really hope the MPs will come together around Sunak. And if they don't, I think they are
I hope they come around soon.
Apart from yourself saying Rishi, I find it incredibly frustrating how you expect us to believe you and get behind you. But like, okay,
Believe
right.
who? You're talking to
Graham, sorry, and say, right, get behind you. One more chance. You can't even give a straight answer to a question. It's so frustrating as someone of, I don't want to say my generation, but it is. It's like, just give us a straight answer and just give people upfront and honest answers to what they want. Don't give us the skirting around the subject stuff. We don't want to hear that. You just want to do you know what? We messed up. This is what we're going to do. Then people might get behind you a little bit more and not call for an election and not get so frustrated with this wishy-washiness.
I'm going to go around the rest. But do you want to give a quick straight answer, or are you still sticking
Well,
to
I always
guns?
give straight answers.
No, not to this particular question.
If you mean I haven't said who I'm backing yet, because she resigned at lunchtime, I haven't spoken to anybody and I haven't decided yet. That's a pretty straight answer. I'm not hiding it. I'm not quietly texting my support for someone behind my back.
I'll tell you if he is.
I'd tell you if I did.
The man at the back in the tartan shirt.
I think after the way she did Keir Starmer at the dispatch box on Monday afternoon, Penny Mordaunt would make an excellent Prime Minister.
Right, OK. She gets your vote. And here in the...
I don't know about an excellent Prime Minister, but certainly an effective communicator, which is
a good Conservative leader, right? And he's not wrong. He's not wrong. She took them to task.
She's got strong dummy mummy vibes.
She does have strong dummy mummy vibes. It's true.
And I'm okay with that. Like, you know, if you're going to have a Tory,
true,
a vaguely fuckable one, isn't it?
And also, I genuinely think that she's trans positive as well. Like, I think the posturing that she was doing was during I think the posturing came during the leadership contest. She wasn't virtue signaling before; she was virtue signaling afterwards when she was trying to win over the Conservative base. She was even when she was trying to pretend to be transphobic, she wasn't even doing it very well or convincingly, to be honest. So I genuinely think she's trans positive. So I mean. Whereas I do think that Rishi Sunak is trans antagonistic, and was just, once he realised his economic credentials weren't getting him to the top job, he changed tack and became the culture warrior. But I think there's a culture warrior tendencies that he has internally as well.
Yeah, well, I don't think he necessarily has particularly strong opinions on trans stuff because he's never talked about it before. Not that I suppose it's that relevant to the portfolio, but regardless, he doesn't seem to have talked about it a great deal at all. But the problem is he's realised it's a potentially vote-winning furrow to plough, and so he might well continue. And I sort of don't care how the camps get opened, whether it's by an ideological Nazi or an opportunistic Nazi. I don't give a fuck. That's not, you know, I'd rather not have the camps. Thank you.
In the blue jacket with the glasses.
What does it say about the Conservative Party that we're even thinking about Boris Johnson coming back? It's unbelievable.
Well, what do you think it's?
Well, he left. He was a disgrace. And we're now putting forward, I'm hearing his name, as a potential candidate to lead our country again. I'm speechless.
Does anyone here want to see Boris Johnson coming back? Yes, you've put your hand up at the back.
There are
four of you, I think. Yes, the man in the red T-shirt with the blue top. Yeah.
I think he was hounded out of the position before. I think the media have too much.
Baldy thinks so.
Ability to.
What's that, sorry?
Baldy thinks so. He literally looks. Do you remember the picture of all the guys at the question time with Jeremy Corbyn asking about nuclear weapons? Would you let the Kim Jong-un from North Korea? You'd be too bloody late. Like talking about the Jeremy Corbyn not wanting to release nuclear, like global nuclear annihilation. He's literally like a carbon copy of one of those people.
Gammon.
Yeah.
Turn things around with party politics. I would like him back, and I mean, he admitted his mistakes. He's a human being.
Okay, and.
Also, even so, like, how many
crimes and shit?
Yeah, like how many mistakes are people allowed to make, right? Actually, they made this good point in another question time, talking about the issues when they were trying to save Liz Truss's skin, right? And they were saying, well, she's admitted her mistakes, and people learn from their mistakes. We need to move on from the mistakes. And it was just like, and there was I forget who it was. It might have been forget who the person on question time was. Oh, it was actuary bloke, I've forgotten what his name is now, and he was like, no, you're in the top job, right? You are the one person in this country who cannot make mistakes, because mistakes in the top office of this country have like wide-reaching consequences. You have to trust somebody to not make mistakes. Brian Cox, that's the one. Thank you, James.
Brian Cox, I was going to say, Scottish guy doesn't sound very Scottish.
Yeah, like you cannot make mistakes. It's the one position where we cannot really let mistakes slide. And Boris Johnson made 1,000 of them at once.
Yeah. Also, if you get a chance, Brian Cox, his greatest role was as Hermann Göring in the Nuremberg documentary series.
I've not seen it.
Absolutely excellent. Plays an excellent Göring.
Love it.
Anyway.
That's my view. I'd like him back.
And the fact that the Privileges Committee in Parliament is investigating him at the moment for allegations that he misled Parliament over the parties at Downing Street. So, in theory, if they found against him, he could become leader and then have to resign.
But that's,
if they found he'd
that's not as we speak today, is it?
No, they're investigating.
So,
of course, they haven't come to a
Oh
conclusion.
my God!
Okay,
I
that doesn't put you
happened
off.
so bad.
Well, how realistically, how can, having lost the confidence of the Tory party to the point where he had to fucking resign, the exact same set of MPs are going to have him back? What? How does that make any fucking sense?
I mean, because these are idiots. These people are idiots. Like, as I said, actually, to be fair, I don't care. Actually, do it. Fuck it. I love it. Brilliant. Let's fucking go. I'm ready for the Banter Timeline season 2. Let's go. Bring it on. I mean, I guess it's kind of Banter Timeline season 3 really at this point, where he becomes prime minister and then is forced to resign, and we have another leadership election. That would be so funny. I cannot put into words how excellent that would be. Not just for the amusing nature of it, but also be even more content for us to cover.
Yeah, true. Very true. It's a content fucking mill, the Tory
It really
party.
is. It really is.
No.
Okay, fair enough. Let me just hear a bit when I'll come back to you. Yes, who was saying they did want Boris Johnson? Yes, you over there in the check shirt in the top, yes.
Graham spoke at the beginning about wanting someone who can command a majority in the Commons, and Jess...
already, look at this Tory boy fup cunt.
I think that if you want to get someone who can command a majority in the Commons...
He's wearing a felt gilet and a fucking gingham shirt. Actually go fuck yourself, mate.
Literally, absolutely. This guy, he's come from playing golf, right? He was in the middle of playing golf. Like, oh, question time's been moved forward. I guess the golfing trip's got to finish quickly. Don't have time to change.
Oh no, I'm going to have to postpone the hunting the poor in the fields. We can do that tomorrow. Okay.
Burning the banknotes in front of the homeless, right? Like, and also his point is dumb as well. Like, Boris Johnson doesn't command the majority of the House of Commons. As you point out earlier on in the stream, there's like a large number of Conservative MPs who say they'll defect if he becomes Prime Minister. Yeah. If anything, he's the least continuity candidate.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Ridiculous.
Says something about them needing a proper mandate. There's only one man who's got both of those boxes ticked, and that's Boris Johnson. I think it's time to come back.
Okay. Someone's had a shot up there. Yes, in the blue shirt. Yes. 3 people clap.
Yeah, but that's the man who trashed the codes of conduct within Parliament. And Graham has said that we can't go ahead with an election immediately because we have a mandate for 5 years. So if the Tories are prepared to hide behind the rules that way, they should be hiding behind all rules or respecting all the rules. And I think Johnson trashed all the rules, and he should never be allowed to stand again.
The man behind you in the white shirt. Yes, you with your hand up. Yes, you with your hand up.
I think just the last few questions have been indicative of the fact that there are that many factions within the Tory party now. I don't see how you gather around anyone. And in a nutshell,
I appreciate a good Mick Lynch cosplay.
It's true. Yeah.
That's why a mandate has to come from the country. You talked earlier about duty.
You could work on the accent.
Surely your first duty is to the electorate.
Yeah. Tony.
Well, I'm incredibly lucky because the rules of my organisation say that I shouldn't be expressing a view, but I will give you 2 criteria. Number 1, they have to agree with Jeremy Hunt and Jeremy Hunt's plan, because at the moment, Jeremy's plan is keeping the country stable just about. So if they don't agree with Jeremy...
What is his plan? I don't even know really what his plan is. It's just don't do the things that she was going to do.
I mean, he explicitly said that he was going to follow the raising the corporation tax thing, which is good. Yeah. And like raising corporation tax to then also keep the national insurance, raising the minimum threshold for national insurance, right? Making that specific trade-off, that's progressive, right? That's good.
Yeah, that's okay.
But because what he's not announced yet is any explicit austerity, because we know that it's coming, right? We know the austerity is coming, but the fact that he's not announced it yet means that people can still stick to what's already been announced and can also reverse his planned austerity if they do come into power. So I think that we're in a good position where he's announced all of the tax stuff, which we all agreed needed to happen. Apart from stamp duty, we need to get stamp duty back because he's kept the stamp duty cut, which was nonsensical, right? But if a theoretical prime minister then could overrule him on his planned austerity, that gives us the best of both worlds, right?
But if you overrule him, does he just then resign?
But I don't think he would. I think he would agree on going with whatever new prime ministerial vision they might have, right? Maybe it might be stealth austerity, where it's about efficiency savings rather than cuts. I'm not sure, but
they better explain in the next few days what their alternative plan is and whether or not that's going to cause the markets to react in the way they reacted, which pushed up all our mortgages and basically some of our businesses. So that's criteria number one.
Jeremy Hunt is effectively the kingmaker in all this.
Well, I think he is. Whether or not he's the kingmaker, I'm not sure. But I think if you're going to disagree with his approach, then that will cause instability for the country. So you better have an economic plan that's as good or as solid.
Oh, God. What they're setting up is that Jeremy Hunt one day will be Prime Minister.
He said he's not.
Set in the... Well, he's not right now, but they're setting up this idea that he's like the economic saviour of the country.
Yeah. Third time's the charm, eh?
Party will coalesce around him at some point, and then Starmer will fucking, I don't know, some boring fucking thing that's dumb, some scandal, get kicked out, and he'll win a fucking majority. Oh, God, I hate the world.
Or is dependable. And I think the second criteria is you have to understand the economy. Cost of living, debt, growth crisis. That's where we are. Now, yes, it could be Rishi Sunak, of course, because he was Chancellor, but I don't know if he agrees with Jeremy Hunt. It might be Penny Mordaunt, but I think that becomes the test. So look, I'll give you a name, but those are the tests. And if you don't pass those two tests at this point in British history, you shouldn't be Prime Minister.
Okay. Woman at the back there.
I mean, it's
in the
true.
white top.
Yeah.
Yes, you with the blonde hair.
I don't think we've seen Jeremy Hunt's economic plan. All we can do is reverse what was brought in a few weeks earlier. Yeah. What is his economic plan?
Yeah,
there isn't one.
Yeah.
No, hang on, what? Dickhead, you can't say you have to agree with him and his plan, and then when she says he hasn't got a plan, nod
say
along.
yes. Very strange. I mean, that's the crazy thing, right? After all, because of all of this, right? People like there's a prevailing view amongst the kind of populist right at the moment that the real reason for this crisis was the level of sovereign debt and how high it was and how high it is going to be after furlough and specifically because they're anti-lockdown, they attack furlough for it and they attack the energy price guarantee for the level of sovereign debt. But until we had like the tax cuts and like the lunatic budget from Kwasi Kwarteng, the markets were still stable, right? Yeah. So continuity, whatever was going on beforehand, that's good enough as far as I'm concerned to get us through all of this, because the financial markets weren't in a tailspin until the markets realised that idiots who were in charge of the country didn't know what the fuck they were doing. But as soon as someone reverses all of that stuff, the markets can get quelled, because as I've mentioned plenty of times on stream, a large amount of sovereign debt is literally not a problem, right? Our sovereign debt is about 80% of GDP at the moment. Japan's sovereign debt is 250% of GDP, right? The idea that like a huge amount of sovereign debt means that it causes a huge amount of instability, that's not the case. What you need is confidence in the exchequer, which you just didn't get with Kwasi Kwarteng because he didn't know what the fuck he was doing. But Jeremy Hunt, by saying, well, let's get rid of the bad stuff, right? Just can't, let's stop. That's good enough as far as I'm concerned. You can continue having the same levels of deficit spending that we do have, whilst also maintaining the low bond yields and maintaining the previous interest rates, right? Or at least not having the huge overnight interest rate hike that we got from the Bank of England due to the mini budget.
Yeah, fair points.
It's also frustrating. The question is, who would they pick for the next leader? It's just the best of a bad bunch. I mean,
Graham there, just a few minutes ago at the beginning, he said how he was surprised that Liz Truss resigned. I mean, I think everyone in the country knew she was she had to resign. There was no choice. So, as far as I'm concerned, you know, whoever they pick, it's the best of a bad bunch. And,
true. Very true.
Were you surprised?
I can't remember if I did say the word surprised. If I did, I'm sure you may be right. But I didn't know is all I mean.
Okay.
And obviously it wasn't out of a clear blue sky, was it? Given the situation. Sorry.
The fact that you're not even making a decision, you're sitting there now saying you don't know who you'll vote for on Monday to take over from Truss.
It's not true either.
I mean, that's amazing,
It's
isn't it?
not true.
Jess said it's not true.
I don't believe that it's true. I don't believe that. Some of your colleagues have already put themselves forward, some unedifyingly, like 12 minutes after Liz Truss had resigned.
It's quite something to say. You said you don't believe me. That's quite a strong...
I'm quite strong, Graham.
Well, so am I, and I'm always entirely straightforward.
Okay.
If I made up my mind, I'd tell you I haven't.
Okay.
And for you to suggest that I would say that
I just don't think that you can't tell.
To say a politician would lie is crazy talk.
You mean politicians just lie? You think they do that?
I demand satisfaction. I shall meet you on the heath in the morn. Pistols.
The audience here, who you wouldn't rule out, you would rule in. Also, just to pick up on something that Tony said, I'm going to calm down when I'm talking to Tony.
Are you withdrawing that allegation or not?
No, we're not in the House of Commons now. I'm not withdrawing it.
Yeah, I can call you a bullshitter here.
Also,
you're a fucking stool pigeon. Shut up.
Also, JDM in chat, has Ash Sark ever been on Question Time? I think twice. Owen Jones has been about 4 or 5 times, I think, but that's as left as we go with regards to people getting leftoids on Question Time. When was how many? They're the only two leftists.
Carla was on there once, wasn't he? I think.
Russell Brand. Russell Brand was on there in his leftoid period, I think. But then again, he's just a celebrity rather than a politician.
Joey Barton. Bizarrely.
Joey Barton.
Do you remember he managed to insult was it Theresa May by saying it was like choosing between 3 pigs or something? Like,
3 ugly birds.
Mate. 3 ugly birds, that was it,
yeah.
Dickhead.
Yeah, he's a fucking idiot.
Fucking knob.
But no, leftoids don't get a place on Question Time. As we said at the start of this panel, JDM, which one we on have been there for, but we said literally it's someone from the business sector, Boris Johnson's sister, someone from the Conservative Party, David Cameron's previous head of policy, and someone on the right wing of the Labour Party.
Yeah, true.
To pick up on something that Tony said, that this is Jeremy Hunt's plan, and it does feel a little bit like Jeremy Hunt is the kingmaker in all of this. Jeremy's plan to stay at our country wasn't needed 5 weeks ago before Liz Truss became the leader, and totally trashed our economy. So the idea that we're asking the country to hope for stability from the same people who just crashed the car, Jeremy Hunt, Penny Mordaunt, of them suggested when they were running for leader just 7 weeks ago or whenever it was, they both floated having completely uncosted tax cuts as part of their routine. Only Rishi Sunak didn't. To be fair to Sunak, I'm not supporting Rishi Sunak.
I think you fucking are.
I mean,
I think you just revealed your hand.
Well, I mean, I agree. I hate to agree with both Jess Phillips and Rishi Sunak here, and Camilla, whatever her name is, not Camilla Tomlin, Camilla, whatever her name is, I've forgotten. Camilla Cavendish.
Parker Bowles.
In that, yeah, I mean, if you want somebody to steady the economy, it has to be Rishi Sunak, because he's the only person who is not someone who lives in fucking bizarro world. Right? He may be an evil person, right? But like,
yeah, he's very corrupt, but he's not lunatic.
Yeah, he's not actual lunatic, right? And again, as I said, I'm as much as I want the Tory party to fall apart and then to get the continuation of the banter timeline for the content, I want that's funny. But like at the end of the day, I don't want people to lose their bluff. I don't want people to lose their fucking homes, right? We're on an absolute precipice for so many institutions in our country, and putting anybody else in charge. I mean, Penny Mordaunt, maybe I think she might have seen the writing on the wall with regards to all of this, right? Although she was talking about unfunded tax cuts, as Jess rightly points out. I mean, maybe it just has to be Rishi Sunak, as far as we're concerned, as far as leftists are concerned, right?
Yeah, what an awful situation.
Yeah.
tell you who I think who should replace Liz Truss, and that is obviously Keir Starmer.
Right, okay. Well, look, to the end.
That was the most soy moment I've ever seen.
True.
Jesus
Jumbly crumbles. It's Jeremy Corbyn with a steel chair.
A second Corbyn has just hit Sir Keith. No.
I'm just going to take the question, but I'll bring you back in, Camilla, I promise. We have another question here from Robert7. Robert. There you are.
Would Keir Starmer make a credible Prime Minister?
Okay, mate, that's a wig. But who the fuck are you kidding? Who the fuck are you kidding?
I mean, no, he wouldn't.
That is ridiculous, mate.
I mean, he definitely wouldn't make a credible Prime Minister because he's a liar. He's a liar and a charlatan, right? He's better than everybody in the Conservative Party for the most part. But he is also a liar and a charlatan, and you cannot trust him. The absolute barefaced cheek, the absolute audacity, the temerity of him to tweet out yesterday that you can't trust the Tories because they always renege on their promises. Given what he did during the leadership election, it's absolutely unconscionable. What an absolute rat! What a fucking despicable piece of shit that he is.
He's gone from like fucking borderline comrade to, you know, the most milquetoast centrist twat in the course of the last 18 months.
Yeah.
You were saying just now that as head of the CBI, you're not going to come down on one side or the other. But would business like to see a Keir Starmer government, from what you're hearing?
Look, I think Keir Starmer, of course, is a credible Prime Minister, right? I think he's a world away of where with Jeremy Corbyn. That's certainly the view of business people, probably the view of most of the public. So I think he's a credible Prime Minister. He's the best Prime Minister. I think the big challenge for Labour now, and it builds on Jess's answer with a little bit more delicacy, is I think the game has just changed for Labour now, because what we have from the Labour Party is a big, bold, ambitious strategy for the country, a big, bold, ambitious economic strategy for the country, but they're going to have to do it without any money. And so I think the Labour Party are going to have to recalibrate now to think about how, given the state of the public finances, given the state of the economic crisis, what will be the...
No, to be fair, Crashtronomy, he's not allowed by his organisation to specifically name a person. So he can give like general indications as to how he feels or how his organisation feels about certain people, but he can't say we want X to be Prime Minister. They're supposed to be at the very least somewhat politically, neutral or whatever.
Prospectus from Labour now, because Labour had a big, bold and expensive plan, in many respects a good one, with some questions for sure. But now I think they're going to have to think, right, what are we going to inherit, according to you all, maybe sooner rather than later, and what is our offer now? And so I actually think if I was both parties, and if I was in Keir Starmer's office, I would be burning the midnight oil now to work out what of our plans can survive in this new debt and growth crisis that we're in, because I think we'll need a serious offer from Labour that's affordable for us to consider them to be credible.
It's an interesting point, actually. If you want to pause it one sec.
I wanted to come back to Boris.
It's an interesting point, actually. If you are Labour at this point, and you want to essentially, you want to be able to spend enough money. Obviously, as JDM points out, there is always money. It's true. Like as I said, I was making the point about debt to GDP ratios earlier, but I digress. That if you want to, even if you want to stay in this kind of monetarist framing of the public finances, would you could theoretically think of a world where they don't want a general election right now. They want it in 3-4 months' time, sometime early in the new year. Give Rishi Sunak or whatever, or whoever theoretical new prime minister is, time for then the markets to settle, the gilt yields to come down, the interest rates to reach some kind of normalcy, so that when you actually get into power, you do have the leeway to propose financing new investment opportunities through government debt, right? Which obviously you can't do right now because of the bond yields. But if the bond yields go down because of someone who's not a lunatic being in charge of the country, then suddenly the scope of what you can promise at the election changes. But I mean, to be fair, Keir Starmer does probably seem wanted. Keir Starmer at this point he's basically prime minister in waiting, so he doesn't have to propose anything. That's an issue, right? Right? Because he doesn't want to be. Yeah. Go for it.
Thank you, Lexibat, for raiding. Much love. Hello, raiders.
You've had 3 raids. I've had none. This is so unfair.
Well, true, but I'm trying to get people over to your channel as well. Everyone,
That's
by the way,
true,
everyone
you
go and
are,
follow Absolute Ledge. Yeah, you can hit the follow button here. Also, go and follow my co-hostess with the co-hostess, this MTG, who is also
Absolutely. Everyone on both platforms should follow each of us. You're Kevin Logan 1875 on Twitch, right? Or is it KF Logan?
KF Logan 1875 on the Twitch machines, or just Kevin Logan on YouTube. I have very, very consistent naming / brand. My branding game is on point. When this is over, we should raid into Well, presumably we'll end at the same time, so that would be.
Yeah, we will be ending at the same time. It's very late. We've been going for 4 hours, almost 5 hours actually. Yeah. I've been going for 5 hours. Sorry.
Well, do you want to just end it here? I don't think they're going to say anything particularly interesting from now on.
No, I'm recording this as a segment, so it's only a little bit left.
Okay.
Only 15 minutes left.
Boris Johnson, the lion across the sea, the Cincinnatus of our age, the guy who, by the way, backed Liz Truss, and boy, maybe he thought she would burnish his credentials to come back. And I just wanted to come back to you in the red shirt because you said he was handed out by the media. His own cabinet resigned because they felt he was unfit to govern. And if he was to come back, I'm not quite sure who he would get back into his cabinet. So I think we really do have to be very, very careful, if I'm honest, before we go back to him. But Keir Starmer, I feel, has spent quite a lot of time vanquishing his hard left. I think, like Tony, there's quite a lot.
It's interesting thing that, isn't it? When it's the left being taken on, it's vanquishing like a terrible, evil foe. When it's literally anyone on the centre or right being removed because they're like obviously going to plot against the leader of the party, it's this is a purge. He's just like Stalin.
Yeah, 100%. But also, you can see how like they feel like there's this unwritten rule between everybody that the getting rid of the left is good, right? They want to get rid of these people because these are the bad people that we don't want in politics anymore. It's agreed upon between all of these people that there is no political legitimacy to the left whatsoever. And again, so basic social democracy to these people is the quote unquote hard left, where they talk about Jeremy Corbyn like it's some kind of like nouveau Bolshevik, right? Like, it's incredibly frustrating because, again, up until this point, no one's ever spoken in these terms about the crazy right-wingers that were all supportive of Liz Truss and all of the think tanks got to this point. In fact, they were entirely complicit in getting these hard right people into politics. The BBC continually were platforming people like the IEA, the CPS, the Policy Exchange, the Adam Smith Institute. These are all think tanks that always had a revolving door in the BBC studios to get on programmes like Question Time and Politics Live. And then these are like the ideological corollary to the kind of the left wing of the Labour Party, right?
Yeah.
Because remember, like if you are a communist, you're not allowed into the Labour Party. Like that's how anti hard left they are as a political force in its history, right? In its history, it's always been.
Well, to be fair, it's only really had two. Well, I suppose if you count Corbyn as more left wing than usual, you've only really had 3 left wing phases in Labour's history, really, and that would be the 45 to 50 government under Attlee. Foot in the 80s and then Corbyn, and that's it. Like even the initial party weren't crazy left wing. Like Marx fucking hated them. Or the Labour committees, whatever they were called at the time. Anyway, doesn't matter. Let's not go into the history of that. That is a solid meme. I appreciate.
100%.
A lot of policy was clear. I don't know what he'd actually do on day one. I don't know if you do, and so you're right. You guys have a huge job to do to recalibrate. But to be quite honest, I think quite a lot of the Hunt plan, in as far as we know what it is, and I accept that the outline is there, is not dissimilar to Rachel Reeves's plan. The energy price package.
There it is.
Insane.
Yeah.
Liz Truss introduced a 2-year energy price freeze, which would have left us as taxpayers beholden to the wholesale gas price. It was a completely blank check to everybody in this country, including the very richest, who I really don't believe need that level of help to heat very large houses.
Oh, here we go.
And I think...
Let's means test everything, make the poor beg. Fucking hell. They're obsessed. Well, I don't care if Sir Philip Green or whoever fucking gets 20 quid a week extra fucking pension or some shit. I don't give a fuck. As long as the poorest are getting it, who would actually make a difference to, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with this shit. And it's like, I'd love to see actual fucking studies done into this. The amount of money it takes in bureaucracy to release these fucking means tested systems probably costs more than they've ever fucking saved by doing it.
Yeah, 100%.
It would be cheaper
100%.
to just give it out.
Well, this is
but
why,
it's like the meanness is the point, isn't it? The cruelty is the point of the policy.
For sure. And this is why when you talked earlier about, when we talk about bankers' bonuses, your point was that, well, it's unfair for the bankers to get the extra bonuses. And that's why I get frustrated when people use fairness as a yardstick when we talk about political policy, right? When I think we should always think about it in terms of utility, right? No, because you can say to somebody, we shouldn't means test things because it always costs a little bit more, it's inefficient, plus it can also be punitive on people who fall on the cusp, right, of where the means test lies. So we should get rid of it for that reason, because it's just better overall utility to do it. And they will always come back to you and say, but it's unfair for us to give money for rich people to heat their big homes, and I feel bad. I don't care. I don't care how fair it is, because it's better overall. Like, the people who are getting the extra money to heat their small homes when they're poor, they don't lose that money and their warm homes if the rich people also get that extra help because it's not being means tested, right?
In what other situations do these people call for fairness? It's not fair that billionaires. I don't hear them going, well, actually, we should tax billionaires at like 95%. Like, no, they don't give a fuck about any of this.
Well, again, it's the same reason is that again, like as you say, it's such a difficult thing to be able to quantify as well. In that we both agree that it's unfair for billionaires to exist, right? We both agree from a fundamental level. We think it's an unfair distribution of wealth in the country, right? But if we were to say something like, well, let's take away these people's wealth with a wealth tax, or let's take away these people's like 500 plus properties or whatever to be able to redistribute them to everybody else, and they would say, well, you're doing something that's unfair because you violated property rights. Do you see what I mean? How everyone has such a different idea of what fairness even means. If you then take it back to utility as the yardstick, is how much extra good are we getting out of this, regardless of whether or not we think that it's distributed in the correct way? Because again, it's just better to not means test things, even if it theoretically is unfair.
Yeah.
Whoever
also, thank
is
you,
in
Dan
government
Simpson,
in
for the
6
raid.
months' time when that package comes to an end, we'll have to produce a new package to help people at the bottom. But it will need to be targeted, and it will need to better. And I think actually Labour have done more thinking about that than the Tories had. So I think if it is Keir Starmer, there's a lot of work to do, but the overtones are good, and the reality, back to Tony's point about stability, is there's a different complexion of government, and it's in time. That means investors and businesses can at least start to grapple, rather than at the moment, where a lot of investors are privately saying, we're really unsure what's happening in this country. We're going to wait for an election. We're going to wait for God to see what it's going to do. And I think that is the problem. That's where we are.
Rachel.
The MTG is Magic the Gathering.
A lot of good sense spoken from Camilla. I mean, she's right to point out that the economic fundamentals aren't going to be that different whether we go forward after 2025 under a Tory or a Labour Prime Minister. And Keir Starmer's best hope is to see the Tory party completely implode further and actually keep his economic cards quite close to his chest, because, as you point out, the energy price cap, the windfall tax, they've already been snaffled up by the Tory party and they've been popular. So he doesn't, but what is that for him to do? I mean,
but would he make a credible prime minister? That's the question.
He could cap bankers' bonuses again.
Honestly, Ukraine, what are you doing?
Oh dear Lord, fucking hell! Oh, that's so cringe.
Do you know he's like you doing?
Do you know he's like a folk hero over there? It's so cringe.
And not just that, but like,
Leave a plaque.
It's also, I mean, there are a number of problems with how cringe this is, but also just on a basic diplomatic level. How fucking dare you?
Also, like,
why have they try and involve yourself in internal politics like that? Fuck you.
Why have they got a grayscale background with just a regular picture? I don't get it. Maybe is it part of the meme? I've never watched Never Call Saul, so I can't.
I don't know, mate. I can't remember. Oh well, I have watched it. It's very good, but it's I can't remember the poster if that's how it works. But anyway, like that's just fucking do that. Look, don't worry. I'm not going to start supporting Vladimir Putin or anything. I'm just saying, like that's.
I mean, if anything can be said, like apolitically, right, about the social media campaign of the Ukrainian government, it's just been wholly cringe the whole time. Going back all like the Ghost of Kiev type stuff, where essentially it's become a war propaganda unit through memes, and that's the worst timeline to possibly live in.
I don't know. I'd prefer it be memes than like old school horrific nationalist propaganda.
I mean that is true. I mean, one's cringe and one's like.
And in
like
war,
awful,
that tends to be how governments go. So I'd rather them do like cringe naffo, fucking rubbish, like it's a doge on a tank, than like. Fear the Russian. The Russian will rape your daughter. Kill all of the Russians. Like,
for sure. Although, to be fair, we did have some Ukrainian Twitter account talking about killing Kadyrov's orcs or whatever it was. I'm like, that sounds a bit racist.
That's a bit much. Yeah.
To be fair, we are living. It is the first incredibly kind of globally noticed international war that's been viewed through the lens of social media. So it's a really interesting case study as to a war Twitter. It's very, very strange. Yeah. Very strange.
Well, and you've got to say they've been very effective, undoubtedly, in terms of
the amount of people who genuinely believe the Ghost of Kiev stuff just shows how powerful this is as a tool for war propaganda.
But Saint Javelin's going to save us all.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, in the same way that, a lot of the obfuscatory rhetoric that's come out of the Kremlin has also pervaded social media and broken the brains of a bunch of leftists in the West as well.
True.
I mean, clearly both sides of this war have used social media to great effect for war propaganda, which is scary to think about. Because if you think if that's what they can do, if that's what they're willing to do during war. Right? Imagine what they're happy to do during peacetime. What they do during peacetime, right? Remember how during how essentially the social media campaign strategy of the Donald Trump campaign in 2016 was essentially to create social media echo chambers through targeted advertising, which is terrifying to think that people's entire worldviews were shaped by political adverts, paid for by a political campaign.
No, that's not good. That's the replacement of actual media with just propaganda. Although I suppose media is
I just want to point out JDM before. JDM's pointing out obviously there's genocide in Myanmar and there's Syria, the war in Syria and the Yemen conflict. I understand those things, but they're not as internationally. Haven't been given as much international attention as the Russo-Ukraine war, because this one's in Europe and involves white people, right? But when brown people die, that's just part of the cause. As soon as Europeans start dying, it suddenly becomes an international thing, right? And I'm not saying that's good. It's obviously bad, but this is just literally how it works, unfortunately. Like literally,
we need to protect the people of Ukraine because we support democracy, and killing people is bad. But we're also going to sell weapons to Saudi Arabia to kill Yemeni people.
Yeah, so exactly. And Ukrainian refugees. And Ukrainian refugees, we're going to give them temporary visas in Calais so they can get the Eurostar over. But if you're a brown person from one of the bad countries, we're going to try and drown you in the channel.
Or fly you to Rwanda.
Yeah, and then if you get here,
not many Ukrainians being sent to Rwanda, are there?
No, exactly. They kept telling us Rwanda. Apparently, according to Darren Grimes, Rwanda is lovely this year. Quite frankly, I think all the Ukrainians that come in, they should get sent to Rwanda as well. Just because clearly, if it's so good, we should be sending the Ukrainians there too. If they're missing out.
Yeah, exactly. Also, they're quite pale. They could do with it, I reckon.
Yeah.
And he could place a windfall tax on banks, which would probably impact badly London, financial centre status, all the rest of it. Would he make a credible Prime Minister? Of course he would. Of course he would. He'd make a Prime Minister. He sounds like a Prime Minister. He is at the moment, he is Prime Minister in waiting as the polls stand, isn't he? He's what, 30 points ahead. So all he's 31. Got to do, 31, all he's got to do, as far as I can see, is not spook the markets anymore. Let's face it, I mean, when the next Prime Minister comes in, he can get Jeremy Hunt if he or she so desires. But the real boss is the bond markets. So that's what Keir's got to look at when he lays out, which he will, his economic plan.
The very healthy democratic system we have. The skittish freaks of the market get to just decide what public policy is.
I mean, you are right. But the issue is, of course, that if you have an economy entirely built on sovereign debt, then your economy is always going to be at the whims of your debtors, right?
Well, maybe we should not do that.
Ideally, we would decommodify everything and have full communism. I'm down. But I mean, to be fair, as JDM has pointed out in chat already, there's always more money, right? Like, if you really want to go full MMT, I'm not saying that I'm MMT pilled right now. I'm too economically, I'm too much of a layman about economic stuff to give a proper opinion. But
pilled, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Because they're the best kind of Ninja Turtles.
True.
And his manifesto going into the next election.
And just to be clear, you would welcome either a Labour government or some kind of coalition of sorts?
I don't know what I welcome at this point. I mean, don't we all sort of feel that, well, beyond the last 6 years, I think what we're not talking about yet again is the elephant in the room. 2016, who was it who said David Cameron called the referendum? The last Tory Prime Ministers have had to resign because the party became ungovernable, because it divided Leave and Remain. Now the Tory party is split between Borisites and Rishiites, between those who want a centre-left economic plan Jeremy Hunt has, versus the Trussites who wanted a hard-right libertarian economic plan that Liz Truss
Jeremy Hunt
wanted, which didn't work, which spooked the bond markets.
Well, that's how far the fucking Overton window's gone, that Jeremy Hunt is now.
I'm gonna have a fucking aneurysm.
They're gonna start calling him a communism. A communism? Yeah, fuck it, that'll do. They're gonna call him a communism soon.
See, Jesus Christ! And they already have. They called him a puppet of the CCP because he said that their policy of COVID eradication strategy was something admirable. Which, yes, it was. Like the lockdown policies that they did. That they did do in the third wave of Omicron. I disagreed with those, but at the start, when they took immediate action with regards to lockdown policy to try and perform an eradication strategy, I agree with that. And the same way I agree with what New Zealand did.
Yeah. So Jeremy Hunt, because he's now a leftoid, get ready for the anti-Semitism.
True.
Allegations to fly.
So the Tory party split irreparably, as far as I can see. Labour's job is not to split the same way, and Keir's task ahead is to keep the party together so it doesn't split hard left, centre left, as far as I can see. Am I right, Jess?
Yeah, but I don't think it will.
Okay, let's hear from you. You had your hand up here.
I'm a veteran, and I listened to parliamentary questions yesterday. I heard brinkmanship, sniping, backslapping on both sides of the political spectrum. I think both of the main parties need to clean up their act and to serve us better. We've got some big ticket items. Russia and China are a major threat.
What was her being a veteran got to do with anything?
I mean, these people are apparently better than all of us because they served the country by fighting Blair's oil wars. But and again, it's just frustrating her going, both of the parties only believe in political point stories or backslapping and jeering. And I'm like, okay, how about you got what you fucking wanted when you didn't vote for the jam man who spent his time at parliamentary questions talking about the issues within real people's lives. But no, he's a communist, apparently, the Marxist-Leninist vanguard of the Labour Party, Jeremy Corbyn. And so you couldn't back him. He's a terrorist synthesizer. God, these people, they were literally handed what they want out of a politician on a plate, and yet They were too busy talking about whether he would nuke North Korea or not. I'm done. I'm just done with the people in this country.
Keith, can't wait.
Go ahead, Keith.
God.
And the behaviour I've just seen this evening, sniping and tit-for-tat behaviour, has no place anymore. We need some serious leadership.
You're nodding your head there in the cream top. Yes, you with the glass.
It's not green, it's pink.
It's
No, it's white. What I'd like to know, what are the opinions of the panel on the reversal of the business rates?
Well, the question they're dealing with.
I was about to say, don't bring actual policy into it. We're dealing with personality. Please. So this is a fucking political discussion show. No, it's fucking X Factor for nerds.
I mean, you say that ironically.
It's actually true. Yeah.
Very true.
Is would Keir Starmer make a prime minister?
We've had too many.
So we should. What does that mean?
Sorry, what did you say?
Would Keir Starmer make a credible prime minister?
Who is he?
We're in a care home now.
Who's Keir Starmer?
Okay, that probably tells us what your thoughts are. All right.
That question is for you, actually.
Graham.
Yeah.
Well, Keir Starmer, and Labour is ahead in the opinion polls, but we are facing his is, in terms of its fiscal impact, more radical than the steps that Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng put forward, which were looking to get the incentives, drive economic growth. The cost of decarbonisation, for instance, and I'm the climate change minister, by 2030 are unimaginably large as well as undeliverable. For the most part, Keir Starmer has focused on keeping stopping the divides within his own party, which is something you've got to do. But of course, his party, he was at the last election trying to get Jeremy Corbyn Prime Minister. So it's from trying to make him Prime Minister to saying he's the vanquisher of the left is a fairly extraordinary journey. And there is none of the work that went in. If you look back, one of the best.
It's called political betrayal. Yes.
Yes, true.
Yeah.
Or
it is an extraordinary journey.
Or political opportunism, more like. Not even betrayal, because he just did whatever he could, do everything I thought was best for him at the time in his own personal interest, right? I mean, to be fair, his second referendum policy, people keep attributing it just to Keir Starmer. To be fair, it was a joint policy idea between him and John McDonnell because they wanted to heal the fractured divide within their own party, which obviously failed miserably because, whatever. They should have just continued with Brexit, and there was clearly a miss policy, right? But the reason why Keir Starmer wanted to get Jeremy Corbyn into number 10 or campaigned with the Labour Party was just because he felt like it was his route to relevance rather than for any kind of political utility.
Yeah.
Books ever as Unfinished Revolution is by the pollster for Tony Blair, Philip Gould, and it tells the story of the build-up of the team around Tony Blair, Gordon Brown, as they sought to overturn the Tories after their surprise win in 2. And the amount of work that went in, the policy development, the thinking, and it is, and I'm, clearly we're not in in terms of our governance of ourselves, as opposed to, I think, the policy platform of the governing of the country, are not in the place that we should be. But I'm not sure that Keir Starmer, who has almost deliberately failed to come forward with policy in many areas, but where he has, it's actually totally unaffordable and unrealistic because he wants to appeal to the crowd and just keep his team together. One of the things we need to do now, given that they're ahead in the opinion polls, is subject them to the same scrutiny that you subject the Tory programme to.
The question you're hearing from Tony, for example, is what is Labour's...
Well, yes and no. I mean, you are the government. I think it's fair that you do get, a fair amount of scrutiny, considering it's our fucking tax money you're spending, brick.
Respect, as Camilla's saying, what are you going to do on day one? I appreciate we are potentially a way out from a general election. Yeah. But nonetheless, these are questions that are increasingly...
She has no idea, because neither does he.
No, but I'm going to take a humble, appreciation of the lady at the front, and I'm going to try not to snipe with Graham. I apologise. But
So what would you do?
Sorry, yes.
What would you do? I mean, the question is, would Keir Starmer
stop myself from sniping
would Starmer make a credible Prime Minister? Obviously, you think that yes.
Of course.
But in terms of the wider question, what would Labour actually do?
The reality of the situation on day one is that I don't know what tomorrow looks like. To the lady in the audience who said, I don't know what Jeremy Hunt's plan is. I don't know what tomorrow looks like. I have no idea, and neither does anyone in the Labour Party or anyone in the government currently know what the economic situation is. I find it absolutely flabbergasting to listen to government ministers, as we have just heard, talking about how what the Labour Party had suggested would totally crash the economy after they have just totally crashed the economy. I find that absolutely
but you know you're going to
flabbergasting.
inherit a lot of... Should you win a general election, you know you'll inherit a lot of debt. And obviously what you can't say is, we didn't know what the situation was going to be, so we worked it out once we got in office.
No.
You're going to be doing it before
I don't even know what the OBR forecast is yet, because both this Chancellor and the last one, and maybe there's going to be another one next week, have failed to share it with anybody. So I literally do not know. And for me to sit here and make spending plans without even the forecasts in front of us is exactly what has just got us into the problem that we are in as a country.
We're going to be talking...
However,
50 million, 70 million, it's going to be massive.
What I will say is that obviously, as a Labour Party member, I mean, the Labour Party has put out a number of different policies, some of which is based on new taxes around getting rid of non-dom status, for example, which they are suggesting will fund things like a massive recruitment in the NHS, which has failed to recruit over the last 12 years and has left the NHS in total crisis. So they have put out a prospectus, and what they have said is that they use anything other than they will always spend within their means and only borrow to invest. We will never borrow to give rich people tax cuts. On this, you have my word.
What is your word worth, though?
I'm sorry?
What is her word actually worth, though?
I mean, yeah, obviously it's worth fucking nothing. The thing is, that's the worst part about all of the Johnny Crumble stuff as well. It's like, oh, this is all completely unfunded, right? And it's like, well, hang on a minute. No. What we're doing is using that money to be able to invest in public infrastructure that will then also go into turning a profit to generate revenue for the Exchequer. The reason why we borrow the money is because we intend to make money from it rather than just give it away, which seems to be what the Conservative government have done with their borrowing over the last 12 years, considering that they've never, ever, ever had a budget surplus in the entirety of the time that they've been in power in this time. The last time we had a budget surplus was under Tony Blair. That's how long ago that's how far you have to go back to have a budget surplus, right? And the reason why we don't have budget surpluses anymore is because we have no revenue for the Exchequer, because all of our public infrastructure, all of our public services got sold off to the private sector. So any revenue that was there to gain goes into the pockets of the super rich, and the Exchequer has to pick up the tab, whether it is for actually providing the services in the first place or for serving the PFI debt that we were given by the Labour Party. Let's not forget, right? I said that the last time there was a surplus was under Blair, but let's not be frank, right? The reason why they had a surplus in that case was because the debt was put onto the PFI credit card and not the bond credit card, right?
Yep.
Let's see what happens over the weekend and whether you can get that other people's word on that over this weekend. I don't mean from the Labour Party, obviously. The situation with the Labour Party is obviously I want to come in. I've spent my life, and I spend every single day as a constituency MP watching services that have been totally degraded, and I want a move stick for those services. And the criticism that the Labour Party is, oh, it's just spend, because you've got to have some patter, even though you've been in government for 12 years. But the situation that we're going to find ourselves in is not one that I want. And it won't be a matter of even the first day of a Labour government, or we always talk about like the first 100 days or the first 1,000 days. And in the first 100 days or 1,000 days, Tony Blair came up with the minimum wage, had done all sorts of things. We're not in that situation thanks to Liz Truss. We would have been having I would have given a different answer had this been 5 weeks ago when I was actually booked to come on Question Time before Liz Truss became the Prime Minister. So I've just looked out that today. I booked 6 weeks ago to come on. I would have given you a different answer. The Labour Party knows that it is going to not be able to do some of the... I would be putting women's refuges in, you know, because that is the area of my concern. Every single child abuse victim that has been implicated today, I'm trying to... something. The reality situation is I don't know what I'm going to be left with, but what I promise is that we will be fiscally responsible, which Liz Truss has failed to do.
All right, we've got about a minute left, 30 seconds left. Let's just see if I can get a couple of points in. It's the man there in the blue top. You've got the microphone over your head there, yeah.
Yeah, just to take us back to the question, is Keir Starmer credible? I think he is, but just to be more credible, surely he needs to pin his colours to the mast, be honest with the public and say, look, we've got the NHS and other public services in a terrible state. We need to raise more money through taxation. And somebody has to pay for that. Windfall taxes. Taxes should go up for the richer people in society who can afford to pay it. And be a bit more honest. Rishi Sunak started to say that. The Telegraph and the Mail took the Tory membership down the Liz Truss route, you know, and look what's happened. Everybody was warned. So yeah, he can be credible, but he needs to be absolutely honest with the public.
Okay, we've got about 20
Sorry about that.
seconds left. Yes, the man next to you in the glasses.
Yeah, I don't think Starmer should be obviously put as Prime Minister. I think we should stick with Conservative government as we've got, and whoever the new leader is, whether it be Penny Mordaunt or Rishi Sunak, stick with them. If we got into a Labour government, for example, Jess, you know, who's to say in 2 weeks' time when you get into government that we don't go down this whole cycle again?
Right, Mike.
So that's the Tory party plant then, right?
He is definitely the plant. But the point is, though, is that the real issue here as well. Actually, Jess Phillips made a really good point in the, again, we've had 2 sets of monetary policy announcements. Sorry, fiscal policy announcement, rather. Sorry, not monetary. Fiscal policy announcements. And we still have not had an OBR forecast, right? There's still been, like, John McDonnell, when he was formulating the Labour Party manifesto in 2019 and 2017, to be precise, he went to the Office of Budget Responsibility and then got their, you know, presented them with what they were going to be planning, and then got their got them to understand and make forecasts on those proposals, right? Yeah. Even the quote unquote the hard left vanguard, whatever these idiots seem to think they are, even they had more fiscal credibility on going to the neoliberal people who are in charge of the public finances, the finances of the public purse, and got their consent, well, their blessing to be able to engage in that policy path. We got none of that from Liz Truss. And Jess Phillips is, as much as I hate agreeing with her, is right in saying, well, no, we can't tell you until there's the OBR forecasts out, right? Because that's the yardstick that's been set now, and that's the differentiation between crashing the economy because you've not gone to it and saying, well, we'll just work within those means at least in the short term, right? This person's question is just nonsensical. They're inventing some kind of mythical future that doesn't exist.
My goodness.
It was them.
Yes,
just FYI. It's them that are revolving.
Take your point, thank you. I'm afraid our time is up. Have you enjoyed it?
No. No, I have not. That was atrocious. Oh, no, I had fun. But the difference, enjoying it would be the flagship politics discussion show on the national broadcaster should have talked about some policy, maybe?
True. Yeah.
No? Okay.
That is true.
That would have been
done.
That would have been good. But instead they went, Liz Truss is gone, who should be next? Oh, Keir Starmer might be next at some point. Bye. Oh, thanks. So it's good. What was the one guy saying? We don't live in a presidential system? Sure. It fucking sounds like it.
Yeah, basically, I mean, yeah, exactly. I think, a presidential system would be better, right? You've just argued, you've just told everybody watching why presidential systems are better. I mean, if someone said to me, what do you think that would be, the best form of, you would just support what Republics say about having like an apolitical head of state? I'm like, no, we need a political head of state, because then that's what would be able to stop the paralysis of what we have right now from happening in the future. That's exactly why you have a presidential system in the first place, so that you get some kind of stability moving forward.
In defense of them, I think they're doing that as a sop to people who, like the apolitical, or in theory, nature of the monarchy, but don't necessarily like the entirely undemocratic way of doing it. So it's a cut-off house to try and win over more moderate potential Republicans, I think. Which, considering Republic are never going to have to implement any such plan. They can basically say whatever they like because they're never going to be, because they don't even stand, they're not a political party, so they're not going to have to actually do anything.
True.
In the same way that the Brexiteers were able to make ridiculous claims, knowing full well that they were never going to have to actually implement anything. Well, I suppose some of the Tories thought they probably would, but they knew that would just lie as well. Who cares?
True, true.
Yeah, okay. Well, on that presidential bombshell, talking about President Jeff, the true president of America, in my eyes. Please clap. Will forever be one of the great memes. Anyway, yes. Everyone go and follow No Justice MTG.
Absolutely. Do you want to shout yourself out as well? Because you'll be on the segment too.
I'm Kevin Logan. You can find me in Kevin Logan here on YouTube because it's a segment, and or on KF Logan 1875 on Twitch.
Wonderful. And I'm at No Justice MTG everywhere, including Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. You can actually search on YouTube by tag now. You can search at No Justice MTG, and it will give me all of my give you all of my content on YouTube.